Chapter 374. Fang Yan had never experienced such a thing. Just because he heard a song. No, just a simple tune. It could drive the Tai Chi pole to wake up and spin. In the past, he could only use the heart of Tai Chi when he was in extreme danger. This was like discovering a new continent, which made Fang Yan feel fresh and shocked. The heart of Tai Chi spun faster and faster, and the vortex of Tai Chi sank deeper and deeper. The vortex formed a black hole that could swallow everything that was rolled up. His dantian was burning hot, and this heat spread to his whole body. Fang Yan's whole body also became warm. It was a world of ice and snow outside, and the warmth inside was not too high. However, it was like there was a sun rising above Fang Yan's head, exerting heat only on him. It was steaming hot. It was still the same monotonous and dull sound, repeating over and over again. Sometimes it was about to explode, but it was fiercely suppressed. Then it exploded, and it was suppressed again. Sometimes it sank, and there was no sound at all. The soft sigh of the lonely old man was gone, and the crying of the wind was gone. The wind stopped and the person died. The world was quiet. It was silent, just like the fate of many people. Just when you could no longer feel its presence and thought that everything was over, it would emerge from a faraway place, whimpering and sorrowful. It was like an old man who had been hurt by love. When she was young, she had a lover who loved her. They made a vow to hold hands and grow old together. Times changed and the world changed. The two people who loved each other were either in different places or forever separated by life and death. However, in countless lonely nights or rainy mornings, she could always think of the happy times they had together. But she could not remember the face that she used to think was very familiar. It was also like a young man with a difficult fate. He was smart and intelligent, a genius. Because he offended the son of his leader or superior, he was expelled and framed again and again. However, he was not willing to be ordinary for the rest of his life. He gritted his teeth and stubbornly worked hard day after day. He raised his head again and again, but he could never escape the big net woven by power and wealth. This flute sound was everyone's state of mind. It was everyone's fate. It was every heartbroken person's cry, and every pitiful person's loneliness and indignation. There were young girls crying, middle-aged men with red eyes, and some elderly people hiding in the shadows. Their expressions couldn't be seen, but they could feel their regret and helplessness. Fang Yan's heart of Taiji merged with this tune. When the flute sound was deep and gentle, the heart of Taiji would spin gently and comfortably. When the sound of the flute was about to reach its peak, the speed of the Taiji heart also increased, as if it was about to explode. When the sound of the flute sank to the bottom of the valley, until there was no more sound, until the people had left and the tea house was already empty, Fang Yan's Taiji heart also came to an abrupt stop, like the calm surface of a lake. The sound of the flute rose again and pressed down again. It rose again and pressed down again. He lifted it up again and again, and pressed it down again and again. You light the fuse, anticipating the bang. The knife you stabbed was waiting for blood to splash on your face. You spent so much time and energy flirting and rubbing against each other, just for that moment when your soul and flesh merged, and your essence erupted. Explosion. Everyone was waiting for it to explode. Fang Yan's heart of Taiji also went through this process. Just as it was about to explode, shatter his dantian, and tear his body into a pile of meat paste, it returned to calmness again and again. Then it exploded again and again, and again and again, over and over again, as if it was going to exhaust its entire life. Woo woo woo. The sound of the flute gradually faded away, then disappeared without a trace, without a sound. Finally, everything disappeared. The old woman sat in front of the window for a long time, but her lover didn't come. The young man struggled all his life, but still remained unknown. You lit the fuse, but it was a squib. You stabbed out, but it only stabbed empty air. You flirted and rubbed against each other, but met someone who didn't love you. All living beings suffered. This was an extremely sad story. Silence. It was still deathly quiet. The music had stopped for a long time, but the lights in the hall were still not turned on. Everyone stood silently in the darkness, not knowing if they were waiting for the sound of the flute to resound again from the desolate wilderness, or the boundless sky, or if they were unable to extricate themselves from the silence of the past. The moonlight of the old days shone on me a few times, playing the flute beside the plum blossom, summoning the jade woman, regardless of the cold and picking. A clear male voice suddenly rang out in the darkness. His son is getting old now, and has forgotten about the spring breeze. But no wonder, the sparse flowers outside the bamboo, the cold fragrance enters the Yao mat. Jiang country is silent, sighing to the distant road. The night snow has begun to accumulate. Emerald jade is easy to exhaust and Hong Yi is speechless. Long memories once held hands, 1,000 trees pressed down, and the West Lake was cold and blue. When will we see each other? The man was very talented in reciting. A lonely and helpless ancient poem was sung with his unique voice, making people feel deeply immersed in it. Loneliness followed him like a shadow. This poem, and the flute sound of the music fanatic echoed each other, and promoted each other. Music was the voice of the heart, and the words were the soul of the music. It made one's entire body go soft, as if life had lost all meaning. The person who read the words was General Xing. Although it was dark, Fang Yan could still recognize his voice. Fang Yan's heart of Tai Chi was spinning, because of the music fanatic's unknown flute sound, and General Xing was also deeply touched. It was one thing to have feelings, but to be able to express one's feelings in a poem was another. This was enough to show a person's cultural attainment and personal quality. Only after listening to General Xing's explanation could he have a deeper understanding of the music fanatic's song. Many people should be grateful to General Xing, right? This kid was always able to silently buy people's hearts. Pa! It wasn't until the man finished reading that the lights in the hall lit up in unison. The girls hurriedly wiped the tears from the corners of their eyes. Some rubbed their eyes and squeezed out a sad smile. Even more people lowered their heads and drank to hide their sadness. Pa! Someone clapped. Clap, clap, clap. More people joined in. After a few breaths, the applause was like thunder. They didn't see the music fanatic, nor did they see a huge band or gorgeous instruments. There was only a clear flute, but it brought everyone to reflect on their lives. This was the music fanatic. Yi Fengsheng rubbed his eyes, and looked at Wan Qian beside him with red eyes. He said, I don't know what's going on, but I just feel terrible. It's like that woman doesn't want me anymore. The music fanatic's reputation is well deserved. Her music is not only pleasing to the ear, but it also cleanses the soul. Zhu Zaidan, the iron-blooded man, was actually sobbing like a little girl. It's like listening to a sad story or watching a sad movie. Chen Yanqing said. Yi Fengsheng turned to look at Fang Yan and said, Fang Yan, how do you think you became like this? Fang Yan looked like someone had poured a bucket of water on his head. His entire face was covered in sweat. His forehead was dripping with sweat, and beads of sweat rolled down his cheeks. His clothes were completely soaked, but the soaked clothes didn't stick to his body. Instead, they were lifted high by an invisible gas. Yes, Fang Yan's current state was like a wet doll that had been filled with air. His face was red, and there were flames burning in his eyes. The hot air above his head evaporated, and a white gas came out from his hair, forming a white pillar that shot towards the ceiling of the hall. I'm going out. Fang Yan's voice was hoarse. His mouth was dry, and his throat felt like it was about to be roasted dry. There was no water in it at all. The music stopped, but his Taiji heart was still spinning crazily. Moreover, it was spinning faster and faster, completely out of his control. Take a breather, Fang Yan said. He used 2 sentences to finish these 6 words, and there was a long pause in between. Chapter 375. Fang Yan once wanted to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat, but he never thought of becoming famous as a bird. He was not a very open person. He could swear to Guanyin Bodhisattva, Buddha, and all the gods in the world that he was still a virgin. But why did it become like this? He stood naked in the center of the stage. There was wind blowing, and his butt was slightly cold. He should cover his crotch or let everyone enjoy it. This was an unforgettable night because the pupils of every audience were blooming like fireworks exploding. This modern poem called Time was not written by Fang Yan. It was written after the banquet by a modern poet named Lu Xiafan who was inspired. This poem was first published in a newspaper's poetry anthology. Later, It was reprinted and published by countless media, and was also quoted by the online media. It became popular for a while. Many people wanted to restore the story after seeing this poem, and even more people wanted to find out who he was standing naked in the center of the stage. Liu Xiaofan became famous again because of this poem, and became the representative of the avant-garde poets of Huaxia. As for the person involved, Fang Yan, the young virgin Fang Yan was scared out of his wits. The hot sweat on his body turned into cold sweat, sticky and stuck to his body. Because of the crazy rotation of the heart of Tai Chi, the strong Qi peeled off his clothes. And because of this explosion, the heart of Tai Chi in his body finally calmed down. Since he learned to bathe himself, no one except him had seen his naked body. Of course, the battle at Sword Peak did not count. Fang Yan stubbornly believed that it was nighttime at that time, and other people must not have seen anything real. But this time was different. The lights were bright, and the crowd was crowded. Everyone's eyes were only focused on one point, and everyone's smile was so playful. No one wanted this to happen. Fang Yan opened his mouth and wanted to explain something, but the words that came out were so weak. Then, he covered his crotch and ran out of the clubhouse with his bare butt. When he ran to the door of the elevator, he remembered that the club's elevator required a card to go down. So he turned around and shouted, Yi Fengsheng, hurry up. Yi Fengsheng, Zhu Zaidan, and the others were still a little dumbfounded. Everyone had just played as the 7 warriors of Wolf Ivory Mountain. Why were they cosplaying as streaking demons in the blink of an eye? Even if you have a hobby in this area, you still have to inform your brothers in advance, right? How are we supposed to cooperate with you when we are not prepared for your sudden attack? The fat on Yi Fengsheng's face kept twitching. He said to his brothers, What is this? Anyway, I don't care what you guys think. This time, I won't be stripping with him. I won't take it off either. Zhu Zaidan shook her head with a serious expression. I would rather die than take it off, Wan Qian said with a serious expression. If I take it off, I won't be able to face anyone. A man in black walked over, looked at Fang Yan and said, Sir, we have all the spare clothes, if you need them. Yes. Fang Yan interrupted him and said, Quickly take me to change clothes. Please come with me, the man in black said. Fang Yan didn't follow him. Instead, he jogged in front of him. After running a few steps, he felt that it wasn't safe. So he covered his crotch and retreated behind the man in black's butt. Walk faster, Fang Yan said. I'm in a hurry. The man in black had no choice but to quicken his pace. An evil smile that Fang Yan couldn't see appeared on his face. Fang Yan left, but the banquet scene exploded. Oh my god, that guy called Fang Yan. Did he just run around naked? Is this to celebrate? To celebrate his victory over Jiang Junling? What a face of a villain intoxicated by success. How could he do such a shameful thing? This kind of person really isn't a qualified gentleman. Oh my god, I actually forgot to take a picture. Did you guys take a picture? This kid's body is quite nice. General Xing turned to look at Li Guochang and asked, What is this for? Li Guochang's expression was dignified as he said in a deep voice, This kid is too cunning. He doesn't act according to common sense. On the surface, he looks crazy, but every word he says and every action he does has a hidden meaning. Otherwise, Jiang Junling wouldn't have suffered such a big loss in his hands. He actually ran around naked in public. With such a big sacrifice, his intention must not be small. What does he want to do? I still can't understand for the time being. General Xing sighed and said, This is really a guy who thinks of himself as a piece of mud. Meeting such an opponent is really not a lucky thing. No wonder my younger brother kept failing. This time, my younger brother must have had a very serious fall, right? I really should go back and comfort him. Li Guochang smiled and said, At this time, what he doesn't need the most is comfort. So I didn't follow him back. General Xing said with a chuckle. Fang Yan has a very reasonable saying. In the past, I pretended not to care about a lot of things, but now I really don't care about those things. I really don't care. That's because you have thought it through, Li Guochang said. Yes, I have thought it through. General Xing sighed. This kid has taught us a lesson. On the big screen in the room, the scene of Fang Yan covering his crotch was playing. The The girl in red giggled and said, Mr. Fong's body is not bad. He also seems to be in a good mood. The handsome man standing behind said, this was not a room, but a fresh and elegant greenhouse. The four sides of the greenhouse were made of transparent glass, and one could see the dark world covered with ice and snow outside. It was windy and snowing outside, but it was as warm as spring here. All kinds of red and yellow flowers were blooming brilliantly, and there were butterflies dancing among the flowers. In the middle of the flowers, there was a woman in white whose age could not be seen. Her facial features were not stunning, but everyone who saw her felt that she was beautiful. They felt that her eyes were beautiful, her eyebrows were beautiful, her mouth was beautiful, the way she spoke was beautiful, the way she held her chin and thought was beautiful, and every move she made was beautiful. Some women won with their faces, and some women's temperament could kill everything. They were Luqi crazy for music. This was one of the 7 addicts of Huaxia. Luqi, although her song made the little children outside cry until their clothes were wet, she did not come out to see anyone from the beginning to the end. Master, are you unhappy? The boy in white beside him asked. Something strange happened just now. Luqi said. What strange thing? Someone matched my song. Luqi said. The boy laughed and said, Master, how can someone match your song? The song you played is a new one, and you haven't even given it a name. I can feel his existence. Luqi said. That's a kind of musical resonance. There's such a thing. The boy said. I don't feel it at all. Master, what should we do? Luqi thought for a moment and said, Go and invite him over. I want to have a chat with him. Invite him over? But master, I don't know who he is. Luqi frowned slightly and said softly, He must be a person who likes music. Master, many people like your music. He must be a very elegant person. Master, I understand. Is there anything else? You know, I'm very stupid. There are hundreds of guests outside. I'm afraid I can't find him. This problem made Luqi feel very awkward. She said, He should be older, and has some experience that young people don't have. Go out and say that I'm looking for a fated person. I think everyone will respond. You can determine who is the fated person I'm looking for based on everyone's reaction. Master, I understand. The boy said. The boy in white left the greenhouse and went straight to the banquet hall. The charity auction was about to begin. The guests gathered together and did not leave. The boy's clear eyes scanned the audience, but he could not determine who his master was talking about. He could only say aloud, Ladies and gentlemen. No one paid attention to him. Who would care about what a child was shouting? They were all discussing Fang Yan's streaking incident. I'm Luqi's disciple Latong. The boy in white was a little angry and raised his voice. Swoosh, a person's name was like a tree's shadow. As soon as the name Luqi came out, everyone stopped talking. They looked at the boy in white in surprise and thought, Luqi's disciple. What is he doing here? As the host of the party, Wang Xiaoyao quickly walked to Latong and asked, Little boy, are you a disciple of Master Shui? I'm not a little boy. Latong said unhappily. I'm Luqi's disciple. Okay, you're not a little boy. Wang Xiaoyao said with a smile. Then tell me, what do you want? Master asked me to find a fated person. Latong said. A fated person? Everyone's eyes lit up. There were hundreds of guests present. Who wouldn't want to be Mr. Luqi's fated person? If they could meet Mr. Luqi, it would be something that would make them famous in Beijing. It would be as eye-catching as Fang Yan's streaking. Of course, their reputation would definitely be much better than the former. Which fated person? Wang Xiaoyao asked with a smile. She thought that if she could be that fated person, it would be a wonderful thing that could be spread around. I don't know. Latong said frankly. Master said that he and Master have a resonance in music. He should be a gentleman, right? Resonance in music? A gentleman of respectability? Many people turned their attention to General Xing's face, because after Luqi's flute ended, General Xing recited a poem that suited the occasion very well. General Xing was the fated person that Luqi wanted to meet. Chapter 376. More and more people were looking at them, and Lutong knew that the person he was looking for had appeared. He walked to General Xing and asked in a clear voice, Are you the fated person my master is looking for? General Xing laughed and reached out to touch Lutong's head, but Lutong dodged. He didn't like people touching his head. General Xing didn't care and said, "Do you think I'm the fated person your master is looking for? Everyone is looking at you. You should be, right?" Lutong said innocently. "I don't know," General Xing said frankly. "However, if Mr. Liqi invites me, I'd be happy to express my admiration to her. I've enjoyed Mr. Liqi's masterpiece twice, but I've never met her. I've always felt deeply regretful." Lutong looked at Wang Xiaoyao, who said with a smile. After Master Shui's flute ended, Mr. Jiang recited a poem on the eyes. Wang Xiaoyao recited the poem again, and Lutong's eyes lit up. He said, "It's very appropriate. He's the resonant person my master is looking for." Lutong looked at General Xing and said, "Come with me. Master wants to see you." "Thank you, young sir." General Xing teased. "Humph." Lutong snorted and led the way. "See you later, everyone." General Xing greeted everyone with a smile. All the guests looked at General Xing with envy. Not everyone had the opportunity to be invited by Liqi drinking a cup of tea with Liqi, chatting about music for a quarter of an hour. And when General Xing came out of Liqi's room, he would become Liqi's guest and music confidant in all kinds of rumors. This was really helpful to his reputation. Between the two brothers, the younger brother, Jiang Junling, was humiliated and left. But the elder brother was invited by Liqi. It had to be said that the elder brother was much luckier than the younger brother. Perhaps, the elder brother was not as bad as the outside world said? Lutong knocked on the door, and without waiting for his master to respond, he pushed the door open and said, "Master, I've invited him." Liqi was repairing a pot of chrysanthemum, and did not answer, or even turn around to welcome the guest. Liqi did not speak, and neither did General Xing, who was standing at the door. Lutong looked at his master, and then at General Xing, touched his head and left. Cha, cha, screech. Liqi cut off 3 chrysanthemums, so that the flower cluster wouldn't look too crowded, and the flowers wouldn't be squeezed out of shape. The sparse but well-proportioned feeling made people feel relaxed and happy. Liqi seemed to have forgotten the guests behind him. General Xing also treated himself as an invisible person. He watched Liqi prune the chrysanthemums. He watched Liqi prune the plum blossoms. He watched Liqi build the welcoming pine. He watched Liqi build the cactus. After a quarter of an hour, General Xing bowed slightly to Liqi's back, and then turned to leave. Lutong pushed the door open and said, "Master, he has left." "He left," Liqi replied. "He's not the person you're looking for." "No. I'm sorry, master." He looked very experienced and elegant, and he even recited a poem that matched Xiaosheng's poem very well. Everyone said it was him. "Master, how do you know it wasn't him?" Lutong asked, puzzled. "You didn't speak, not even a word." "I'm listening at the door." "His footsteps are too soft," said Liqi. "Too light?" Lutong was even more puzzled. What did light footsteps have to do with whether he was a soulmate or not? "His footsteps are deliberately light because he has distracting thoughts," Liqi said. "It is impossible for a person with distracting thoughts to resonate with my Xiaosheng. He is a frank and selfless person." "Master, since he is not the soulmate you're looking for, why did he stay in the greenhouse for so long?" "Because he didn't want to leave." "He couldn't leave either." "Why couldn't he leave even if he didn't want to?" Liqi did not explain this to his disciple. He was still young, and did not understand how complicated the thoughts of adults were. The man just now, he was invited in by his disciple in full view of everyone. If he left as soon as he came in, what would people outside think of him? If he stood in the greenhouse for a while, and then went out, the outside world would have a different interpretation of his meeting, wouldn't they? As for why she let him stay, it was because she owed him something. This was her compensation for him. She invited him in, and had already pushed him to the eyes of everyone. If she kicked him out and made him lose face, it would be tantamount to forming a deadly feud between the two sides. She just wanted to make music, and didn't want to make enemies with others. This was also the reason why the general bowed to Liqi when he left without a word of dialogue between them. She understood, and so did he. "Master, I'll go out and help you look for him again," Lutong said. "No need." Liqi shook her head and said, If we are fated, we will meet again in the future. If we meet, ask him to name this song. I'm quite curious, Latong said with some regret. What kind of person can resonate with master's music? Luqi stopped talking and focused on trimming the flower branches in front of her again. Except for music, she did not have much interest in other people or things. The buildings were getting taller, and the Sihiyuan were getting fewer and fewer. It was also because things were rare that the remaining Sihiyuan had become a unique landscape in Four Corner City, and any one of them was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Zijing Alley. This was an inconspicuous narrow alley on the map, which could only accommodate one car. Two cars could not go side by side. However, this was a very special alley. It was next to the Red Wall and close to the Privy Council. The location of the wall was the highest authority in Yanjing City. The Red Wall had been expanded once, and the surrounding buildings were demolished, but this old alley was preserved. The alley was simple and old. The gray walls, red tiles, and the glazed roof of the courtyard door were covered with snow, wrapping these old houses in a bright new coat. Every courtyard door was closed. On such a snowy night, no one was willing to open the door to face the wind and snow at this time. A champagne-colored Bentley was parked at the door of an old house, and the driver was a beautiful and plump woman. As soon as the tigress stopped the car, Jiang Junling, who was sitting in the passenger seat, pushed the door and got out. The tigress pushed the door and walked out, ready to help the man knock the lock and call the door. Let me do it, Jiang Junling said. The tigress stepped back and stood aside to guard Jiang Junling. Jiang Junling said he would knock the door, but he stood on the stone steps at the door for a long time without moving. After a long time, he sighed softly and asked, "Is it very shameful? Victory and defeat are common in war. Young master lost because he underestimated the enemy," the tigress said frankly. She was shocked by the little guy she met for the second time. He actually had such ability. She really underestimated him before. She said that she underestimated the enemy. Not only Jiang Junling underestimated the enemy, but she also underestimated the enemy. She was deceived by her beautiful smile. I didn't underestimate the enemy. Jiang Junling shook his head. I won't make such a mistake. Pa pa pa. Jiang Junling reached out and knocked on the copper lock of the wooden door. After a while, the wooden door trembled and opened. The old housekeeper stood at the door and said with a smile, "Second young master. Master is waiting for you in the room to play chess." "Thank you," Jiang Junling said respectfully to the old housekeeper. "Go quickly. I have already prepared the chess pieces," the old housekeeper said with a smile, and turned to close the courtyard door. Jiang Junling took off his windbreaker and scarf, and hung them on a hanger in the corner of the room. Then he sat in front of the chessboard and said, "I'll play first with the black piece." "You first," the old man in the sheepskin coat sitting opposite him said. So Jiang Junling made the first move. I expected Swallow Doc's reaction, but I didn't expect it to be so big. Is it necessary for a few wild children who are causing trouble outside? Who called you? Young chief. The old man placed a white piece in one hand and held a cup of hot milk in the other. He is in charge of contacting Swallow Doc. When he first took office, he brought people to Swallow Doc to see that gentleman. He called him a disciple and was extremely respectful. How serious is it? Jiang Junling asked in a low voice. Another black piece was placed. If it was only because he was humiliated at the banquet, an old man like his grandfather, who had experienced many hardships, wouldn't say the words, "a crushing defeat." Your fifth uncle's transfer has been delayed, the old man said. He was supposed to go to a very important position, which we have been seeking for a long time. But tonight, someone from another family was placed in that position. Who is it? Jiang Junling said, gritting his teeth. He felt a faint pain in his heart. Fang Yan was right. He wasn't his opponent. He didn't see him as an opponent from the beginning, being humiliated in front of everyone, or being ridiculed by the guests who came to this banquet. What was the big deal? It was nothing more than a bad reputation and a dusty future. It was not good for him, but it was also good for him. The Tao addict's words, "One should have a son like Jiang Junling," pushed him to the front of the stage. His every move was infinitely magnified. If he could disappear or be quiet for a while under everyone's eyes, he was willing to pay such a price. However, what Fang Yan wanted was obviously more than that. He was not only targeting himself, but the whole family of the general family. He set up this shocking situation and put on a wonderful show. He used the power of all parties to cut off a very powerful arm of the general family. His own face was damaged, but the general family or the old man in front of him just smiled lightly and said, "The child is naughty." However, he forcibly ruined the fifth uncle's transfer. This was clearly a punishment for the general family from above. Some people from above wanted to kill the chicken to show the lion, so Fang Yan pushed the general family out. The general family became the chicken that was killed to show the monkey. This was no longer a joke, nor was it a child's quarrel. It was an attack that hurt the general family and made them bleed. He took the initiative to attack the general family. Who is it? Jiang Junling felt his blood boil, and his hand holding the chess piece trembled. Who took the fifth uncle's position? Pa. The old man decisively took a white piece and said, "Swallow doc. Yi Dowling." Chapter 377. People from the Yi family. Jiang Junling grinned. His smile was as cold as the first snow. No wonder they put in so much effort. What? Not reconciled? The old man threw the white chess piece in his hand into the white jade porcelain jar, took a sip of milk, and asked aloud, "So what if I'm not reconciled?" In the end he won. "I heard that you and that child had some unhappiness, and I just watched happily. You're still young, and he's also young. Why should old guys like us get involved in young people's affairs?" This time, he really made people look at him in a different light. Our Jiang family spent so much effort and spent so many resources. The matter that was already set in stone was forcefully ruined by him. This is no longer a child's play. This is a grand strategy that ordinary people can't plan. Even some people with high political intelligence ratings don't have this kid's brain. Think about it. How can a few children's jokes affect the decision of this level? The old man's eyes became deep, as if there was an endless river in them, and anyone who jumped into it would be drowned forever. He said in a low voice, "If this is just a coincidence, because that brat pushed it from the outside, it just so happened to conform to some people's intentions, and your fifth uncle's position was swapped, I can still accept it. But if that brat predicted this situation from the beginning, then you, young friend, are really worrying." Jiang Junling pondered for a long time, and still truthfully said to his grandfather, "Perhaps, Grandpa's worry about him is necessary. Maybe from the beginning, he had already predicted such an outcome." The old man's expression became more and more dignified. Then he grinned and said, "Interesting, really interesting. I've lived for so long, but I never thought I would fight with a kid. Grandpa." Jiang Junling clenched a black chess piece tightly in his palm. A person like his grandfather actually regarded Fang Yan as an opponent. Where would the face of the younger generation be? He said firmly, "Fang Yan, leave it to me. Do you still have confidence?" The old man looked at his grandson with a burning gaze and asked aloud. "I've never lost confidence," Jiang Junling said. "He is an opponent worthy of respect, but I will solve his problem." The old man sighed and said, "Why would I have a conflict with him? Such a person. How good would it be if they could become friends? I won't get involved in this matter, and I won't let them get involved either. Since you're the one who brought it up, then you'll be the one to take it back. But let's calm things down first." The blow this time was too heavy. Since that person had made a move, it meant that they were already angry. He had to give them some face. Also, Swallow Doc isn't as simple as you think. In the past, everyone tried their best to ignore their existence. He didn't provoke them, nor did he give them any important tasks. You, on the other hand, let them take advantage of you. With Yi Dowling's position occupied, his future is limitless. I understand. Jiang Junling nodded. I didn't think it through this time. This is a dead knot. You can't untie it. Even if you didn't go to the banquet today, what about next time? What about the next time? There will always be a time when they meet. You're just a partner chosen by him. The old man finished the milk in the cup and said, "I'm old. I can't stay up all night." "Grandpa, I'm sorry," Jiang Junling said with a face full of guilt. If it weren't for his matter, Grandpa would have already fallen asleep at this time. Okay, go back. Take a bath and have a good sleep. When you wake up, many things still haven't changed. You are still Jiang Junling, and he is still Fang Yan. Your sister-in-law may have some gossip, but you don't have to take it to heart. Women always have long hair and short knowledge. They don't understand the complexity and danger of the world. Grandpa, I will go to Fifth Uncle's house to apologize to him. Jiang Junling said frankly. This matter started because of me. I must give him an explanation. Jiang Junling helped Grandpa lie down on the bed, covered him with the quilt, and turned off the light in the room. Then, he closed the door and retreated, standing on the eaves of the corridor, and looking at the pure white snow in the small courtyard. Jiang Junling reached out his hand toward the sky. A small flower fell into his palm. It was light and cool, but it didn't hurt or stimulate him at all. He looked at the small flower and murmured, "Why do I have to lower myself to the same level as a small flower?" The small flower felt the temperature of his palm and slowly melted into a drop of water. It will eventually be melted. In a white shirt and black suit, Fang Yan, who stood in front of the mirror, couldn't believe that the handsome man was himself. It was said that beauty was a feast for the eyes. Seeing a beautiful woman, one didn't need to eat. Fang Yan, on the other hand, was relieving his worries with beauty. When he saw his image in the mirror, all the awkwardness, embarrassment, and hostility that he had suppressed in his heart were swept away. He felt that his mood had suddenly become sunny. The clothes fit me very well, as if they were specially prepared for me, Fang Yan said with a smile. Did they really prepare it for me? The man in black only responded with a smile and didn't answer. Right, can I see your president and thank her? Fang Yan asked. The man in black shook his head. No, I'm just a bodyguard. I received an order from the walkie-talkie to bring you here to change clothes. The man in black said, I've never seen our president. I can only convey your request to the manager, and then the manager conveys it to the higher-ups. I won't force it, Fang Yan said. Next time I have the chance to see her, I'll definitely call you. The man in black grinned and said, That's great. The charity auction had just begun, and the most exciting part had yet to come. But Fang Yan was too embarrassed to return to the scene. Who knew if someone would misunderstand and think that he deliberately took off his clothes and ran around naked. These clothes, can I wear them outside? Fang Yan asked. Up to you, the bodyguard in black said. Thank you, Fang Yan said. Please send me out. No problem, the bodyguard in black said. Fang Yan followed behind the bodyguard in black and carefully walked towards the elevator. As he walked, he prayed that he wouldn't meet any acquaintances. Fang Yan, a familiar voice was heard. Fang Yan turned around and saw Xia Xia standing in the brightly lit side hall with a smile on his face. Fang Yan opened his mouth to smile, but the smile was incomparably twisted and painful. He was too embarrassed to look into Xia Xia's eyes and said, The auction has just begun. Why did you come out? The assistant is here to help. I received a call and need to go back to deal with some matters. She looked at the suit on Fang Yan with interest and said, It seems that you don't plan to stay anymore, do you? They are playing here. Do you think it's suitable for me to stay here? Fang Yan asked seriously. Xia Xia thought for a moment and said, Not suitable. Fang Yan's face was filled with pain, and Xia Xia giggled. Xia Ji took a step forward and naturally held Fang Yan's arm. He said to the bodyguard in black, Sorry to trouble you, I'll accompany him down. The bodyguard in black knew that his part was over, so he took the initiative to press the elevator button and respectfully sent the two of them off. The elevator descended quickly, and the scenery in front of them kept changing. The outside world looked like a blurry abstract painting. I'm sorry. Fang Yan looked at the world of ice and snow outside and apologized seriously. You knew it would be like this from the beginning, didn't you? Xia Xia and Fang Yan stood side by side, not turning around to look at Fang Yan's expression. I don't know, Fang Yan said. Xia Ji frowned slightly. They were all smart people. If Fang Yan was still unwilling to confess to him, then wouldn't her friendship be a bit too much of a waste? I don't know, Fang Yan explained. This is a big gamble. I brought my friends to make a big bet, but whether I lose or win, I can only leave it to fate. This is not your style. Xia said. Although I don't have many opportunities to interact with you, I know very well that you are a very cautious person. That's right. I am indeed cautious. However, sometimes I have to take the risk to do some things. Fang Yan said helplessly. When they target me, I can be lucky enough to defuse them time and time again. If they start targeting my family, my friends, this is too dangerous. I can't put my family and friends in danger. That's why you forced Jiang Junling to make a move. Yes, he has to cooperate with me in this scene. No one else can. Fang Yan said. Only when he makes a move will the pressure be stronger. And this bet will have more weight. What if you lose the bet? So what? Fang Yan asked. I am a nobody. Everyone knows that I am a nobody. In their eyes, I have no dignity, no face, and even nothing to lose. Even if I lose the bet and get expelled by them, it will only make them laugh for a while. Maybe when they wake up tomorrow morning, many of them will forget my name. What do I have to lose? For you, this is a bet you must win. I may not win, but I will definitely not lose. Fang Yan said. Clang, the elevator reached the first floor. Before the elevator door opened, Xia turned to look at the side of Fang Yan's face and said, For a while I was very angry. I was worried that I would also be your chess piece. And now? Fang Yan asked seriously. Now, I'm just a little worried. Worried that I will become your chess piece in the future. Fang Yan grinned, revealing 2 rows of white teeth, and said, Xia, you don't need to worry like this, because we are friends. Very good friends. Xia was about to speak, but saw a girl waiting in the snow, whose eyes were shining like the stars in the sky, and said with a smile, So what about her? Chapter 378. The night was dark and cold, but because of the snow outside, the whole world didn't look that dark. It was as if a thin layer of gauze was covering the top of his head, and the outline of everything in the world could be vaguely seen. The lobby of the club was magnificent, and there was an endless stream of guests coming and going. Everyone looked elegant and joyful. They were dressed in luxurious clothes and chatted with each other. The tires of the cars in the distance crushed the ice and snow with a screeching sound. The mixture of ice and water splattered everywhere. The girl was wearing a light yellow one-piece dress and a thick gray cloak-style plush coat. On his feet was a pair of white leather boots. The heels of the boots were nailed into the snow, like a delicate flower growing on the vast earth. The front of the jacket was open, revealing her flat, slender stomach and slightly protruding breasts. Her hands were casually in her pockets, just like those young girls whistling on their way home from school, or walking on the ancient street covered with ginkgo leaves with headphones plugged in. Youthful, fashionable, beautiful, sexy. There was a gentle and beautiful smile on her face. Her lips were curled and rosy, her eyebrows were delicate and slender, and her beautiful nose was slightly red from the cold. However, this little bit of redness made her look more childlike and playful. If he took a step forward, he would be completely exposed by the bright lights of the hotel lobby. If he took a step back, he would be swallowed up by the endless darkness and the noisy world. She stood between the light and the dark, as if she had come from the darkness and retreated from the light. People couldn't help but be attracted and touched by her. She looked at Fang Yan. She only looked at Fang Yan. Anyone with eyes would be able to see that she was waiting for him. Fang Yan was pleasantly surprised for a moment, but then his heart ached a little. He looked at Summer and said, She is a very special person. I can see that. Xia Chen gave the girl a meaningful look and said, Looks like I have to take my leave early. After that, without waiting for Fang Yan's response, he waved at the girl and walked toward the luxury car that the driver had driven over. Fang Yan walked up to the girl, and their eyes met. Fang Yan grinned and said, You're not hungry to eat. You don't know how to drink, and you're too casual when it comes to singing. I don't know what other men invite girls to do. How about I invite you to admire this city of white snow? It's my honor. The girl squinted her eyes and smiled. Thus, the two of them walked side by side towards the world of ice and snow outside. Because of the girl's sudden decision, the men and women pretending to be guests in the clubhouse lobby, the black people hiding in the dark corners, and the driver dozing off in the car immediately got busy. Miss, if you travel on foot, how do you determine the security level? Should the star group follow up? Should the light team prepare emergency measures? Should the convoy follow them closely? Miss gestured for me not to follow them. After a long time, a man's voice came from their earphones. Miss, you don't have to worry about safety when you're with him. Leave a car to follow them from afar. Don't get close. Thus everything calmed down. Fang Yin was very happy. Even if he didn't say or do anything, he walked step by step from the Maple Leaf Club to the South Bridge, from the South Bridge to Causeway Alley, and from Causeway Alley to Green Spring Garden, and he didn't feel irritated or tired at all. He wanted to keep walking like this. Can you imagine? Walking was full of happiness. That happiness was like golden soup that was about to overflow from his face. The girl was also very happy. When Fang Yin took a step, she also took a step. Since Fang Yin was walking fast, she was walking fast as well. When Fang Yin walked slow, her footsteps also slowed down. When Fang Yin said he wanted to invite her to look at this city of snow, she really looked at this city of snow very seriously. Looking at the snow on the ground, there were many pairs of footprints in the snow, densely packed, coming and going. But she knew that the two sets of footprints belonged to a pair of intimate lovers. Because they were so close to each other, the footprints showed that they were willing to live and die together, and never want to be separated. Looking at the snow on the wall, the swing inside the wall, the road outside the wall, the pedestrians outside the wall, the smile of the beauty inside the wall. The laughter gradually disappeared, but the affectionate was annoyed by the heartless. Would there be a beauty living inside the wall? Did the beauty like to laugh? Looking at the snow on the trees, the heavy snow pressed down on the branches. Looking at the snow on the roof, the car looked like a tortoise shell. Looking at the boiling snow in the sky, looking at the snow falling on the tip of his nose and eyelashes. Every place was exquisite, and every place was interesting. They walked from Tiantong Courtyard to Yenjing University, from Yenjing University to Shuimu University, from Shuimu University to Renmin University, and from Renmin University to Aviation University. The girl finally stopped. She looked at Fang Yin and said, "I'm hungry." "I'm hungry too," Fang Yin said. They had walked a very, very long road. It was 10 kilometers, not 20 kilometers. Or it could be said that they had already walked one round around Yenjing City. All the students knew that there would be a food street in front of every school. The girl said she wanted to eat noodles, so Fang Yin found a stewed noodles restaurant. "Boss, 2 bowls of stewed noodles," Fang Yin shouted. "One big and one small. Put more mutton and less noodles." "Boss." 2 big bowls, the girl corrected Fang Yin's words. Then she also said, "Put more mutton and less noodles." In some aspects, they had reached an agreement. The chubby boss was amused by their conversation and said, "2 bowls of stewed noodles, put more mutton and less noodles." Time passed really fast, or it could be said that the chubby boss's actions were really fast. As soon as they ordered the noodles, the stewed noodles with more mutton and less noodles were delivered to them. Fang Yin used his chopsticks to pick it up. There was indeed a lot of mutton, and of course there was also a lot of noodles. Fang Yin smiled at the boss, and the boss waved his hand, indicating that it was not a big deal. So, the two of them buried their heads in the noodles. Fang Yin ate up the mutton and the noodles. Then he drank up the noodle soup. Strange. Why was the noodles so delicious? The girl ate up the mutton, ate more than half of the noodles, and then drank a mouthful of noodle soup. She clutched her stomach and said in pain, "No, I really can't eat anymore." Fang Yin looked at her oily lips and smiled as he took out a tissue and handed it to her. She did not mind that it was dirty and took it to wipe her mouth. "Boss, give me a bottle of wine," Fang Yin said. He suddenly wanted to drink, preferably the strongest Shadaozi. "Boss, give me 2 bottles of wine," the girl said. She also wanted to drink, preferably the strongest Highland White. The chubby boss told them that there was no Shadaozi or Highland White here. So they ordered a 56% ergotu together. Fang Yin unscrewed the bottle cap, but did not hand over the wine in his hand. He asked, "Can you drink it?" She was a girl, and she was still a little girl. Not everyone could resist such strong wine. The girl took the bottle and gulped it down in one gulp. "Do you know what I can't do?" the girl asked back. Only at this time did she show a little pride. Tonight, she had nothing to do with nobility, pride, or genius. She was just a friendly, natural, and cute girl next door. I can't think of it for the time being, Fang Yan said. He unscrewed the other bottle of erguotu, raised his head, and gulped down a mouthful. Eating noodles, admiring the snow, meeting a beauty at night, and giving him 3 tales of strong wine. It was really a great joy in life. Fang Yan looked at the girl and said, I know you're fine. You'll definitely be fine. You're so smart, nothing can stump you. How could something happen to you? But I've called your number more than 1,340 times. My phone has a digital record, but I've never been able to get through. I know you'll be fine, but I can't help but worry. I've been waiting for you to come out to see me. I thought, if you don't come out, I'll go to your door. Although I don't know where your house is, someone will know. If I can't, I'll ask each and every one of your houses. Eventually, I'll find out. I know you have your difficulties and difficulties. I've seen this kind of plot too many times. Girls from big families like you are like the princesses and princesses of the past. Your life is not free. I also know your family doesn't like me and don't want to see me. Let them scold me, let them scold me, let them beat me. I think I'll be able to lure you out, and I'll be able to see you. Fang Yan looked at her beautiful eyes with a face full of guilt and said, Only when I see you with my own eyes can I know that you're fine, that nothing has happened to you. I'm fine. The girl's eyes were red, but she raised her head to stop the tears from flowing. For her, tears were a sign that her body was weak. It was easy to make a mistake at a time like this, which would give her opponent an opportunity to take advantage of. Even if she thought that there was nothing in this world that she couldn't do. But there were some emotions that she really couldn't control. I've always been fine. I know that Eagle Mu is one of your men, Fang Yan said. Yes, Eagle Mu is one of my men, the girl said. I know that you invited Jiang Junling. Yes, I had someone invite Jiang Junling, the girl said. I know that you prepared this suit for me. Yes, I prepared this suit for you, the girl said. She looked up and down at Fang Yan's body and said, It looks like it fits you. But I don't understand. Why? Fang Yan asked. Why did you send Eagle Mu to help me? Why did you invite Jiang Junling on my behalf? Why did you prepare clothes for me? And why? Take a bullet for me. Chapter 379. Sowing in spring and harvesting in autumn, the cycle of karma. Sowing in spring, harvesting in autumn, the cycle of karma. Sowing a grain in spring, harvesting 10,000 in autumn. This was a well-known fact. Fang Yan knew that she was very nice to him, but he didn't understand why she was so nice to him. Do you still remember the first time we met? The girl asked in a crisp voice. Yes. Fang Yan nodded. Such a beautiful girl was hard to come by anywhere. Moreover, she gave him a show of strength the first time they met. Even the cold and elegant Lu Chaoga didn't give him such a strong sense of oppression. I've already said it very clearly, the girl said. That day, everything was alive and the sun was just right. The girl stood in front of the podium, and after her self-introduction, she wanted to sit in the first row. Fang Yan asked her to give him a reason that could convince him. She said that she wanted to be closer to him and see him more clearly. I don't believe it, Fang Yan said. He didn't believe in love at first sight, and he didn't believe that the girl in front of him would fall in love with anyone at first sight. The girl raised her pretty face again and gulped down a big mouthful of liquor. The boss of Fatso was dumbfounded. Then, he gave Fang Yan a thumbs up and gave him a meaningful smile. Fang Yan wanted to rush up and beat him up. If it wasn't for the big bowl of stewed noodles with enough mutton. Qin Etian looked at Fang Yan and asked, You really don't have any impression at all? No, Fang Yan said. Beidei. The girl looked at Fang Yan's face and said word by word, Jianfeng Rich. Beidei? Jianfeng Rich? A crack appeared on the sturdy flagstones, and bright light shone through the crack. Fang Yan felt the divine light falling from the sky. His mind was still in a state of shock, but it was suddenly brought to the distant past. When was it? Was it when he was 13 or 14? At that time, Fang Yan was just an inexperienced youth, or rather, a half-grown child. At that time, Fang Hui was awe-inspiring. His legs were not paralyzed, and his Tai Chi skills were rarely matched. At that time, Feng Hui was highly respected in the Jianghu. He had many disciples and hundreds of friends. He was loved and respected by the people in the circle. At that time, the old drunkard Mo Qingdi was like the sun in the sky, a rising star in the inner river. He defeated close to 100 tyrants, trampled on enemies from all directions, and shone brightly. At that time, the Feng clan wasn't in such dire straits that they were bullied and humiliated by others. At that time, Feng Yin was just a playful monkey. One summer, Feng Yin accompanied his grandfather to Beidai to attend a high-level conference. Grandpa had a mission to complete and had to accompany the leaders of the conference, so he couldn't accompany Feng Yin. Thus Feng Yin, freed from his restraints, roamed around Beidai. Feng Yin walked along the shore of Beidai, passed through the security zone, and arrived at the free sea area where tourists could freely enter and exit. The beach, the sea breeze, the bikinis, the beauties were as numerous as the clouds, and the temptation was like wine. It was a feast for the eyes. The young Feng Huohua secretly swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva, then continued walking forward. When he walked to the edge of the road, he saw a black off-road vehicle parked there. He glanced at the off-road vehicle, and the driver of the off-road vehicle glared at him. The smell of blood. Feng Yin smelled the smell of blood. Feng Yin was born in an ancient martial arts family. Although he was young, he clearly knew that those were the eyes to kill. Although some people looked ferocious, their eyes did not have any hostility. This man was different. He looked ordinary, but his eyes were like a hungry wolf staring at a piece of fat meat. As long as he opened his mouth, he could swallow you whole. Feng Yin was vigilant, so he didn't directly clash with him. He turned into a supermarket and bought a bottle of mineral water to drink. After walking for such a long distance, he was indeed a little thirsty. When he was paying, he saw two men quickly rushing toward the van from the supermarket's glass. Their footsteps were steady, and their speed was surprisingly fast. It was obvious that they were martial artists. One of the long-haired men was holding a bedsheet in his arms, and there was something wrapped in the bedsheet. Feng Yin didn't know what was inside, but when they opened the door and got into the van, a small foot fell out from the bedsheet. It was a child's foot. Human traffickers. Feng Yin cursed and rushed out of the supermarket. Just as he was about to approach the off-road vehicle, the vehicle suddenly started and charged forward at high speed. Perhaps it was the temperament of a teenager, or perhaps it was because his blood was boiling. Feng Yin knew that if this child was kidnapped, then one or even several families would be destroyed and sent to hell. He must save this child. Feng Yin's running speed couldn't keep up with the car's full speed. The off-road vehicle gradually moved further and further away, and finally disappeared before Feng Yin's eyes. Feng Yin didn't give up. He used the tracking skill. He learned to closely follow the off-road vehicle's unique tire tracks, searching and following. Finally, Feng Yin found the off-road vehicle at Jianfeng Ridge, which was 20 kilometers away from Beidai. He searched according to the shoe prints around the off-road vehicle, and then found traces of human presence in an extremely secluded cave. Feng Yin found the green snake grass in the mountain stream, then found sulfur and a few other flammable materials at the entrance of the cave. When he ignited the green snake grass, and thick smoke billowed into the cave, he covered his mouth and nose with a wet cloth and rushed in. The resistance was weak. Those martial artists who might not be weak were caught off guard and breathed in the poisonous smoke from the green snake grass. One by one, they became weak and were quickly knocked out by Feng Yin. Of course, the child in the grass nest in the corner was also knocked out. This was the most beautiful little girl Feng Yin had ever seen. Perhaps even the human traffickers didn't have the heart to treat such a child too harshly, and even used licorice to make a comfortable little bed for her. It wasn't until Feng Yin saw a gun sticking out from the waist of a human trafficker that he realized these criminals might not be as simple as he thought. The green snake grass was still burning, and the poisonous gas in the cave was getting thicker and thicker. Feng Yin left with the little girl. He ran to the hillside with the little girl in his arms. Perhaps it was because she was woken up by the mountain wind, or maybe it was because Feng Yin was carrying her in the wrong position, or because the running was too bumpy, but the girl woke up. Her skin was white and tender, and her facial features were flawless. Long eyelashes, and the pair of dark eyes that looked at Fang Yan were like a pair of the purest black gems. Fang Yan only felt that his heart was about to melt. At that time, Fang Yan, who was only a teenager, actually had a sense of responsibility as a father and brother. He thought that no matter what, he must protect her from any harm. "Brother, you're not a bad person." The girl actually took the initiative to speak. She was not afraid, nor was she shy with strangers. Her voice was clear and sweet, like the tinkling of spring water. "How do you know?" Fang Yan grinned. He thought that this child was really interesting. Lying in the arms of a stranger when she opened her eyes. Why didn't she cry out in fright? "It's because your face is red," the little girl said with a straight face. "Bad people don't blush." Bad people don't blush? Fang Yan thought about it seriously. He really hadn't seen bad people who blushed. But that didn't mean that there weren't any. Some bad people. While Fang Yan was thinking about the accuracy of this question, the girl giggled and said, "Also, bad people aren't that stupid. Mom said that bad people don't care what others think. They only care about what they want." You are still thinking about what I said, which proves that you are not a bad person. Fang Yan had the feeling of banging his head against the wall. He was actually deceived by a little girl, and he couldn't even fight back. "Brother, where are you taking me?" "I'm taking you to find your mom." "I don't know where my mom is, but the police uncle must know. Because I got lost, my mom will definitely call the police," the girl said very seriously. "Okay, I understand," Fang Yan said. When he was searching up the mountain, he saw a police station at the foot of Jianfeng Ridge. It was said that it was specially set up to prevent people from racing on the mountain at night. Fang Yan carried the little girl to the police station. The girls at the police station were on guard. Some were on the phone, some were running up the mountain, and even more were guarding the little girl, separating Fang Yan and the little girl far away. The little girl sat in a separate room to rest. Fang Yan was chased out of the door. After recording his statement, no one cared about him anymore. Fang Yan walked to the yard and stood outside the window to look at the little girl in the room. "Brother, what's your name?" The little girl walked over and tiptoed to talk to Fang Yan outside. "You won't remember it even if I tell you," Fang Yan said with a smile. "You are still young. It's useless to remember these things. Quickly forget everything that happened today." He knew that if some children suffered trauma in their childhood, it could affect their fate for the rest of their lives. Fang Yan didn't want this kidnapping case to affect the future of this cute little girl, who was like a baby boy hanging on the wall. She was so cute. How could God bear to let her suffer like this? But then again, this child could definitely be sold for a good price. The little girl shook her head and said in a tone that only adults would have, "But I want to repay you." Fang Yan was once again amused by the little girl's words. He found that this child had a shrewdness and understanding that shouldn't be present at her age. "I don't need your repayment," Fang Yan said. "I just did what I wanted to do." Fang Yan waved his hand and turned to leave. Since the child had been handed over to the police, and they had called the little girl's family, then he should leave, right? After all, Beidei was still far from here. If he walked back, it would take some time. He didn't want his grandfather to be unable to find him after the meeting. At that time, Fang Hui's temper was really bad. After walking a few steps, he saw a triangular piece of white paper on the ground. He picked up the paper, folded it into an airplane, and flew it toward the little girl in the room. Whoosh! The paper airplane actually flew through the gap between the steel bars of the window and flew in front of the little girl. "It's a gift for you," Fang Yan said with a wave of his hand. "A dream of 1,000 years, as if it was a lifetime ago. That was too far away, so far away that it was like an unreal story." The girl took out her wallet from her pocket, opened the innermost layer of the wallet, and took out a yellow paper airplane. She said, "This is the paper airplane you gave me. I have always kept it in my wallet. I'm good to you because you're good to me. That's all." Chapter 380. The fat boss had finished his work and was holding an old-fashioned radio in his hands, adjusting the station with a magnetic pull. "May I ask where the road is? The Big Dipper will guide you." After eating, My waist won't be sore. My legs won't hurt anymore. My wives all say it's good. Lin Ilian's love life is bumpy, so she blends her feelings into her music. Today, I'd like to recommend an old song of hers to everyone. It's a song that makes people's hearts soft, like being gently brushed by a feather. It reminds people of the past of picking plum blossoms and riding on a bamboo horse, recalling the best childhood days. The fat boss didn't continue to adjust the channel. Instead, he put the radio in his arms and threw a few fried peanuts into his mouth with one hand. His other hand held a small glass of wine and sipped it happily. After a busy day listening to an old song and drinking a glass of old wine, this was the happiest moment of his life. It had to be said that this fatso was a man with taste. All the fatso in the world had taste. The prince rides a white horse, the moon is gone, and how silly a cat is always chasing its tail. Memories of childhood are priceless. Children play feet are full of sand. Is the one who taught me how to fold airplanes well. Is the one who taught me how to fold paper airplanes well. A paper airplane, a hurried communication, but it made a little girl's heart full of longing and memories. Fang Yan didn't know what that encounter meant. He just used his ability to do something he wanted to do and felt that he should do. However, Qi Tian had always remembered it in her heart. She had even forgotten the experience of being kidnapped. Instead, she would simply think of the silly brother who carried her and ran down the mountain quickly, blushing when he spoke. Qi Tian was a smart girl. She was a proud girl. She was a beautiful girl. She was the kind of girl who was doted on by everyone. She was the center of attention and had many followers behind her. Every day, there were countless people who tried to get close to her and fawn over her. She encountered more dangerous things than the kidnapping, and even bodyguards died for her. She was grateful to them, repaid them, and she remembered them. However, they were different from Fang Yan. They were all different. What was the difference? At that time, Qi Tian was still too young. He was so young that he didn't know how to express his feelings, nor did he know how to analyze his heart. After Fang Yan gave her the paper airplane, he turned around and left. She did not cry, nor did she try to persuade him to stay. She simply felt as if she had lost something very important. What was even more strange was that this feeling did not become weak as he grew older. Instead, it was like weeds growing wildly in his heart. When you inadvertently noticed it, you would discover that it had already turned into a boundless grassland. Fang Yan reached out to take the paper plane. The thin piece of paper made him feel unusually heavy. How many years has it been? She actually kept it all this time? It was just a piece of waste paper that he picked up from the ground before he left. He folded it into a paper airplane and gave it to Qi Tian, who looked cute and lonely at that time. This was because Fang Yan felt that she was just a little girl, and the people accompanying her were all tall and sturdy middle-aged men. She definitely wouldn't have anything in common with them. There was a piece of jade on his neck, and there was a heart-shaped bloodstone in his pocket, which he found in the mountain stream when he was searching for tire tracks. He had more precious gifts to give her, but he was reluctant to give it to her. He felt that she was just a child he had met by chance. He gave her a paper airplane to fly around while she waited for her parents to pick her up. Wasn't this a game a child should play? It was obvious that Fang Yan had underestimated the situation. Or rather, he underestimated the girl's stubbornness and persistence. You kept it all this time? Fang Yan carefully held the paper airplane. He was afraid that he would accidentally dismantle it, because it was really too fragile. He didn't know how she had kept it for so many years. It was just yellow in color, but not the slightest damage. Only God knew if the girl was furious and would ask the fat boss to borrow a knife to cut him up. And Fang Yan could guarantee that the boss of Fatso would definitely stand on her side without hesitation. I kept it all the time. The girl smiled and nodded. This is the first time someone folded a paper airplane for me. I played for a long time after you left. When I was a child, I liked to play hide and seek. The people around me didn't dare to play with me because they were worried that I would hide in a place they couldn't find. If that happened, my parents would be very angry, and they would be very unlucky. But I was really bored, so I could only play with myself. Then, I would often hide in a place where no one could find me. The girl raised the bottle and took a sip, explaining in a soft voice. Later on, I also reflected that I didn't really like hide and seek. I just liked that everyone was looking for me. It made me feel that I was valued. It was the anxiety from the bottom of my heart, not the care of food, clothing, and shelter. I liked to see them panicking, instead of everything being in order. Not everyone wore the same kind of mask, because they liked to express their emotions. I was really naive at that time. I even thought about changing something. That time, I accompanied my mother to Beideh for a meeting. She had work to do and couldn't accompany me. I wanted to build a castle on the beach, but a large group of bodyguards followed me. My butler told me that I must maintain etiquette when there are outsiders. So because there were bodyguards following me, I couldn't build a castle. That was too childish and childish. You see, I knew what was childish and childish even when I was so young. I could only take a walk on the beach, although I was holding my breath. I saw a washing room next to the bathing area. I ran into the female washing room when they weren't paying attention. The surrounding were all male bodyguards. Even if they were very anxious, they could only wait outside the washing room. It was the first time I entered a public washing room. I was looking around curiously. Then my vision went black and I fainted. When I opened my eyes, I saw you. At that time, there was a pimple on your chin, but it's gone now. The first thing I saw was that pimple. I matured early, Fang Yin said awkwardly. I guessed it right. My mother was furious when she found out that I went missing. One of the leaders who attended the meeting spoke, so the whole of Beideh was turned upside down. The girl obviously didn't want to explain too much about these official matters to Fang Yin. She immediately changed the topic and said, although the giant Fingling police station is remote, they received a notice to look for you. After they called the number that they found me, my mother immediately rushed over. I don't know what happened after that. My mother took me away, and everything was handled by the butler. I went home and slept. When I woke up, it was already late at night. I told my mother about being kidnapped, and then you rescued me. I asked her to help me find you, but there was no news of you after that. Later, I found out that you filled in a fake name in the record book. I was afraid that things would never end. It would be very troublesome. Fang Yin said embarrassedly. I was also afraid that the bad guys would take revenge on me. You know, people out there are sinister people. If any of the police officers accidentally leaked my information, wouldn't I be in trouble as well? So I filled in the name by Xiao. The person in charge of interrogating me was perfunctory. He just wanted to go to the room to protect you. He just asked a few questions and ran away. He didn't even verify my identity. No one would care about what a child thinks. However, when Qin Yitian asked someone to check Fang Yan's registration information, he found out that Fang Yan had filled in a fake name. If that was the case, the policeman in charge of interrogating Fang Yan would be in trouble. He originally wanted to stay by Qin Yitian's side, until Qin Yitian's parents, or more important people came over to greet him, or shake his hand. Then, everyone would be promoted by 3 ranks. What a tragic character. The floodgates of memories opened. Fang Yan even recalled the policeman's square face. He didn't look like a bad person. He just wanted to find an opportunity for himself. However, the cruelty of reality told him that he had gone the wrong way. If he had made a serious statement and a real and valid identity information, perhaps the Qin family's attitude towards him would have been different. Of course, it might have been worse. Then I forgot about you, Qin Yitian said. I also thought I forgot about you. The things I had to learn became more and more complicated. The things I had to do increased. Living in such a big house, I still felt that I couldn't breathe. After I talked to my mother, I went to Huaqing. At that time, I just wanted to be as far away from Yanjing as possible. The place that was far from Yanjing, but familiar to me, was Huaqing. The girl's eyes were bright. There was a smug smile on her lips. She looked at Fang Yan and said, when I was sleeping on the grass by the Rosefinch River, when I was woken up by the noise, when I saw a young man standing on a boat reading a poem, when I saw your face that was strange yet familiar, as if we would meet and chat every day, I felt a sense of relief that I had been waiting for so long. It wasn't the shock of the sea of people, nor the surprise of meeting again after a long time, but happiness and relief. Later, I understood that I left Yinjing for Huaqing. I rejected first high school and Ivy League to go to Rosefinch. I stood by the Rosefinch River and waited for you. This was what I had always been doing. All those years. I always regretted that although you didn't tell me your name, I should have taken the initiative to tell you mine. The girl took the initiative to extend her hand to Fang Yan and said, "Hello, I am Qini Tian." Chapter 381. Snow was flying outside the glass doors and windows. The room was not air-conditioned, and the soup in the bowl on the table had already solidified. However, the two of them did not feel cold at all as they reminisced about the past. The girl took the initiative to extend her hand to Fang Yan and said, "Hello, I'm Qini Tian." This was a belated courtesy, and also a belated acquaintance. Fang Yan reached out and held Qini Tian's hand. Her hand was cold, slender, and fleshless. He looked into the girl's serious and sincere eyes and said, "I'm Fang Yan. Nice to meet you. I recognized you at first sight, although you were more mature than the Fang Yan I met before. At that time, your silhouette had already taken shape, and some of your expressions and movements were very special, and others could not imitate you. I've been waiting for you to recognize me. I thought you'd recognize me at first sight. Or maybe you'd recognize me all of a sudden. Wait. Are you an idiot or an idiot? Why aren't you reacting at all?" Qini Tian pretended to be angry. Fang Yan was a bit embarrassed and said, "You were still young at that time. A girl changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood, becoming more and more beautiful. If you didn't tell me, if you didn't remind me of Jianfeng Ridge and Beidai, I really wouldn't have remembered. Was I not beautiful when I was young? You were beautiful when you were young. Not beautiful now. Still beautiful now. Then why did you say that a girl changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood, becoming more and more beautiful? Am I better looking now than when I was young? Both. Mr. Fang, your face is red again." Fang Yan rubbed his cheeks in embarrassment, then looked at Qini Tian with a face full of shock and said, "Didn't you say you didn't want to call me teacher?" "I didn't want to call you teacher before, because I didn't want you to always treat me as your student," Qini Tian explained with a smile. "Why are you calling me that now? Now I call you Mr. Fang because you won't return to Rosefinch, right?" The smile on Fang Yan's face froze as he asked in a deep voice. Qini Tian nodded and said regretfully, "There will be some repercussions from what happened in Flower City. Those people probably won't give up until they get what they want. I've already talked to my family, and they don't agree to let me go to Hua City. That place is too far from Yinjing City. On one hand, there's no natural barrier of authority, so no one would dare to do such a thing in Yinjing City. On the other hand, it's impossible for the family to send too many elite forces to protect me. The Chaoyan Research Institute has already diverted a lot of our energy, and we don't dare to use people who are not reliable enough. Also, I can't waste my time as freely as before. After the new year, I'll be my mother's assistant and start to get in touch with some of the family's core businesses." Hearing Qini Tian's words, Boss Fatso glanced over. With an honest and mocking smile on his face, he thought to himself, "This girl is quite pretty, but her words are unreliable. Every time she opens her mouth, she talks about family, and core business. She makes it sound like your family has many businesses. Raising a few pigs at home isn't a family business, and being able to make a bowl of lamb-stewed noodles isn't the core technology. Isn't it too early?" Fang Yan said in surprise. "You're still that young?" "Still young." Qini Tian smiled and said, "At my age, many people are already shouldering more and heavier responsibilities than me. It's just because my family spoils me and let me drift for so many years. Besides, I can't learn anything in school. I know everything you guys teach me." As a teacher, his self-esteem was still very hurt after being said that by a student in front of him. Fang Yan felt that whether it was from his personal standpoint or professional honor, he had to fight back against Qini Tian's statement. So, Fang Yan looked at Qini Tian and said, "Can your tongue lick your elbow?" If Qini Tian said she couldn't, Fang Yan would quickly extend his tongue to her elbow and lick it. Then, he would seriously teach her that when three people walk together, there must be a teacher, and she should always be humble. There were some things that a teacher could do, but a student might not be able to do. Qin Etienne giggled and said, "This is not difficult for me." Qin Etienne stretched out his arm and drew a circle on his chest as if he had no bones. Then, Qin Etienne's lips gently kissed her elbow. Since her trump card had failed, Fang Yen could only admit defeat. At this moment, the glass door was pushed open with great force, and a strong cold current swept in. Qin Etienne was facing the door, and he couldn't help but wrap his sweater jacket around his body. A few middle-aged men walked in with the smell of alcohol, talking and laughing. The big man in the lead shouted, "Boss, make 4 bowls of stewed noodles. Big ones. Cut 2 pounds of beef. Be quick, we're all starving." Then, he turned to the 3 brothers behind him and asked, "Do you want a few bottles of beer to rinse your mouth?" "No, I won't drink anymore. I drank a few bottles of wine in the nightclub just now. I can't drink anymore. If Brother Hai drinks, I'll drink. If Brother Hai doesn't drink, I'll eat noodles. Eat noodles, I'm starving. How about we listen to Brother Hai and order a few bottles to rinse our mouth?" "Boss, give us a dozen beers." Brother Hai shouted loudly. "Hey, that chick was really strong. She gave it to you in the washroom. I couldn't hold back." The few men shouted loudly and said some unpleasant things. Fang Yen frowned slightly, but Qin Etienne didn't make a sound, as if he didn't understand what they were talking about. Fang Yen looked at Qin Etienne and said, "I'll send you back." The atmosphere of reminiscing was destroyed, so Fang Yen was ready to leave with Qin Etienne, because he was worried that something unpleasant would happen. But he was in a really good mood tonight. He didn't want this happiness to be destroyed. "Okay," Qin Etienne said. Fang Yen shouted, "Boss Bill." Coming. Boss Fatso, who was kneading the dough, quickly ran over. 9 yuan for a bowl, 18 yuan in total. Fang Yen gave him 50 yuan and said, "Boss, keep the change, just treat it as we bought the mutton." "That won't do," Boss Fatso said. "I've already collected the mutton, 9 yuan for a bowl." As he spoke, he quickly found a handful of change and handed it to her. Fang Yen was stunned for a moment, took the change and said, "Come often in the future." "Come often in the future." Boss Fatso smiled honestly. As Fang Yen and Boss Fatso were talking, the eyes of the middle-aged men shifted to Fang Yan's face. After glancing at Fang Yen, they naturally saw Qin Etienne. Then, they couldn't move their eyes away anymore. They were instantly stunned, and their hearts were beating rapidly. They felt that they had found the feeling of their first love. Yes, what a ridiculous thing. When they had long crossed the age of 30, each of them had found the feeling of their first love. Taking off his outer leather jacket, unbuttoning 3 buttons of his shirt, revealing a finger-thick gold necklace around his neck, the short and fat Fuhai wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth. He looked at Qin Etienne with a smile and asked, "Little girl, are you still a student?" Qin Etienne nodded and said, "That's right. But soon I won't be." "Oh, that's because I'm about to graduate." "It's not good to graduate, it's still more comfortable in school. There's a lot of competition. The monthly salary of a university student who just entered society is 1,800 yuan. It's not even enough to rent a basement in a place like Yanjing. Little girl, have you found a job? Should be about right." "What job?" "Assistant." "Oh, it's called assistant, but it's actually a secretary. The people in society are sinister." "Little girl, I see that you're very innocent and have no work experience, so don't be cheated by others." Brother Hai pushed away his chair and stood up, walking to Qin Etienne's side and said, "Little girl, I'll give you a business card. I'm the person in charge of Hai Tian trading. I also have an advertising company and a modeling company. It just so happens that I've recently been recruiting a chairman's assistant. Little girl and I have fate. If little girl is interested in working at Hai Tian trading, I'm willing to give you a monthly salary of 5,000. No, 8,000. This is only the probation period. After the probation period, the monthly salary will be at least 10,000. I can tell you, only you have this kind of opportunity, other graduates can't. Most of them still have to live in basements and eat boxed lunches." Qin Etienne took the business card and glanced at it, saying, "Why do we have fate? Hee, you're so beautiful. You make people's eyes light up. Who wouldn't want to have fate with you?" Brother Hai opened his mouth and laughed, raising his arm to look at the time, inadvertently revealing the gold Rolex watch on his wrist, saying, "Miss, it's 11:26 now, remember this time. We'll meet in this minute. This minute is so different. I'll wait for you for 24 hours, remember to call me. I won't wait after the deadline." Brother Hai showed his most romantic humanistic feelings, looking at Qin Tian and said, "Believe in my sincerity, believe in your eyes, give me a call. I'll give you a comfortable and satisfied smile." Qin Tian couldn't help but laugh out loud. She looked at Fang Yan and said, "Actually, this isn't funny, thinking of ways to pursue the person or thing you like. This is also a kind of courage. This is one of the few good points he has, right?" Brother Hai also laughed and said, "Don't be fooled by my rough appearance. My heart is very meticulous. If you want something, you must think of ways to get it. How can a man not have a bit of aggressiveness?" Brother Hai patted Fang Yan's shoulder and said, "Students like these haven't experienced any big storms. Their shoulder bones are so thin and weak, and their chests aren't wide enough. Can they protect their own women from getting hurt? This is also the reason why so many little girls nowadays like uncles like us." Chapter 382. Brother Hai really liked Qin Tian. Who wouldn't like such a beautiful and cute girl? Brother Hai felt that he should act more mature and domineering. His big hand grabbed Fang Yan's shoulder, making him look like he was full of aggression and control. He knew that some young girls liked this style. Of course, the most important thing was that he used the hand with the watch to grab Fang Yan's shoulder. This way, his Rolex gold watch could be more natural and gorgeous in front of the girl's eyes. If she had a little bit of knowledge, and knew that his watch was indeed a gold watch worth more than 100,000, and not some street stall goods that only cost $12. He regretted that he put the Mercedes-Benz key in his pocket when he entered the door. If he held it in his hand, the effect would be better, but now it was inappropriate to take it out. This was a big mistake. He must pay special attention to it in the future. "Don't you think I'm very domineering?" Brother Hai asked. Fang Yan nodded and said, "Domineering. Ha ha ha." Brother Hai laughed proudly and said, "I'm not domineering, I'm just showing off my strength. The richer a man's financial foundation, the greater his influence in society, and the more weight his words carry. No matter how soft your voice is, others will find a way to hear you. Young man, you will understand in the future." Fang Yan nodded again and said, "Indeed." Fang Yan felt that what Brother Hai said was very reasonable. If Brother Hai didn't have strength and still dared to show off like this, he would have already become Brother Hai Bien. Brother Hai looked at Qin Tian sitting across from him, and said to Fang Yan, "Is it okay to add a seat next to you?" "No problem." Fang Yan still nodded. He didn't have any intention to refuse. He smiled and said, "Sit down." Brother Hai proudly looked at his brothers, meaning to say, "Do you see that? I'm so powerful and cool, no one dares to disobey me." His underlings were also very cooperative, sending their eyes full of admiration and expressions full of worship. So Brother Hai happily pulled a chair and placed it next to Fang Yan. "Which school are you from?" Eating noodles in a small noodle restaurant at this hour. He should be from the Aviation Academy, right? The Aeronautical Academy was the closest to this place. Flight attendant class? It's not that I want to say this, but the job of a stewardess sounds glamorous, but it's actually very tiring. She's just a flight attendant. The salary wasn't high, but there was plenty of work. There are also some customers who are not well-mannered. They are very touchy and give me a headache. We're not from the Aviation Academy, Fang Yan said with a smile. He stood up and was ready to send Qin Tian back. When Fang Yan left, Qin Tian naturally followed suit. The smile on Brother Hai's face froze. He sat down to have a good talk with Qin Tian. Just as he sat down, the other party stood up to leave. Wasn't this a slap to his fat face? "Wait," Big Brother Hai shouted. Fang Yan stopped and looked at Brother Hai. "What's the matter?" Brother Hai opened his mouth to speak, but he didn't know how to answer this question. What could he say? "You guys leaving just like that makes me lose face?" The corner of his eyes glanced at the table, looked at Qin Tian and said, "Little girl, you dropped something." "Dropped what?" "Business card." Brother Hai said with a smile. You forgot your business card. Qin Etian smiled and said, Thank you. But I never accept business cards from others. The people she was willing to remember didn't need business cards at all. Brother Hai's face became even more embarrassed. His eyes were fierce as he said, This isn't a good habit. If someone gives you a business card, that means they think highly of you. If you don't accept business cards from others, that means you're looking down on them. I'm a good person, but my temper isn't very good. If I think someone is looking down on me, then I'll let them have a good look at me. At that time, I'll definitely remember it deeply. Qin Etian thought for a moment, then said, Then just think of it as me looking down on you. Are you King looking to die? The lackeys were very conscious. Seeing their big brother being humiliated, they immediately jumped up and attacked. You little bitch. One look and I can tell you're a slut. You've already become a black fungus, haven't you? Brother Hai, why are we talking nonsense with her? Let's take her away for you to play with. The boss of the noodle shop, Fatso, heard the two groups of people quarreling. He quickly put down the rolling pin and ran over, trying to calm them down. Don't be angry, don't be angry. Anger hurts the liver. We're all civilized people. Fatso walked in front of Brother Hai and tried to calm him down. Brother, they're just two kids, they don't know how to talk. Don't lower yourself to their level. You sit down. I'll make you a big bowl of lamb and noodles. Get lost, Brother Hai shouted angrily. Who the *CK are you? Do you believe that I won't smash your shop? The boss of Fatso said with a wronged face. You can smash my shop. How can you scold my mom? My mom didn't provoke you. Are you deliberately looking to die? Brother Hai was even angrier. The boss of Fatso's rebuttal made him feel like it was a provocation to his dignity. I really didn't mean that, the boss of Fatso hurriedly explained. I just wanted to reason with you. How can you be unreasonable? My mom is farming in her hometown. She didn't provoke you, you can't scold her. With two groups of enemies appearing at once, Brother Hai didn't know who to beat first. Of course, his intelligent brain quickly helped him make the balance. He stared at the boss of Fatso with a sneer and said, Damn Fatso, just you wait, the monk can run, but the temple can't. Wait for your broken noodle shop to close down. You're fatter than me, the boss of Fatso said with dissatisfaction. What right do you have to scold me, damn Fatso? *CK. Brother Hai was about to explode from anger. Where did this idiot come from? Are you deliberately playing with me? Do you believe that I can make your broken shop close down with just one word? I don't believe it, the boss of Fatso said. You don't have that ability. Even if you could do it, you'd have to ask someone to do it. If you ask someone to do it, you'd never get it right. You'd have to say at least a few dozen words. Brother Hai changed his mind. He was going to beat the boss of the noodle shop first. So he waved his hand and shouted, Brothers, help me break one of his legs. Break both of them. I'll teach him a lesson. No problem. Brother Hai's brothers gathered around, ready to beat the boss of Fatso. Wait, Fang Yin shouted. He walked in front of the boss of Fatso and said, Why don't you guys beat me up first? Young man, hurry up and leave. The boss of Fatso grabbed Fang Yan's arm and said, You take that little girl and leave, although she's a bit vain, she's not bad. And I can see that she likes you a lot. This is adult business. Why are you two kids getting involved? Fang Yin smiled bitterly and said, Big brother, how did you know that I'm a kid? You're not a university student here. I'm a teacher, Fang Yin said. A high school teacher. How could you be a university student? The boss of Fatso looked at Fang Yan's eyes with disdain, pointed at Qin Etian and said, She's a high school student. She's a high school student, Fang Yan nodded. The fat on the boss of Fatso's face began to tremble, and he scolded, You beast in human clothing. You despicable person you. You're a teacher. How could you date your own student? Do you have any sense of civility? Do you have any sense of shame? Have you thought about the feelings of the child's parents and family? People like you are worse than animals. No wonder people say that people who read a lot have bad hearts. Your hearts are all bad. Big brother, it's not what you think. It's not what I think. You think I didn't eavesdrop when you were talking? I didn't peek at the way you two talked. I saw it all. And I even secretly blessed you in my heart. Bah, I was blind and blinded to bless you. Brother Hai looked at Fang Yan, then looked at Qin Etian, grinned and said, "Interesting. Really interesting. I thought you were all university students. Turns out you're just high schoolers." He stared at Fang Yan with a smile and said, "Little brother, you're really shameless. You can even lay your hands on a high school girl? Teacher, which school are you from? If your school finds out about this, I'm afraid you won't have a good time, right?" Fang Yan squinted his eyes and looked at Brother Hai and said, "There used to be a hooligan called Brother Wolf. He also wanted to use this method to threaten me. And then he licked my leather shoes," Fang Yan said. Big Brother Hai was furious and shouted, "Brothers, cripple this brat for me." Crash! The three men behind him immediately grabbed the bottles and rushed over. When Fang Yan was about to make a move, Boss Fatso suddenly pushed Fang Yan away, stood in front of him, and shouted, "Don't hit people. You can't hit people in my shop. If you want to hit someone, hit me." Whoosh! A bottle was swung at Boss Fatso's head. This was Brother Hai personally making a move. He was really annoyed by this Fatso's incessant chattering. "Go to hell!" Brother Hai shouted angrily. He was going to crack open Fatso's head first, and let Fang Yan, the male teacher, and Qin Etian, the female student, see some blood. Then things would be easier to deal with, and his goal would be easier to achieve. Crack! The sound of a bottle breaking came. Bright red blood dripped from his forehead drop by drop. Brother Hai's eyes were full of disbelief. He was the one who made the move, so why did his head hurt so much? He felt a little itchy in his eyes, and when he blinked, the blood flowed down his cheek. Qin Etian threw the broken bottle on the ground and clapped his hands, as if he had done something very insignificant. "Mr. Fang, I love watching you fight for me," Qin Etian said with a face full of happiness. Chapter 383. When Brother Hai swung the bottle at the boss of Fatso, Fang Yan moved like a flash and caught the bottle. Qin Etian didn't miss such a good opportunity. She grabbed the bottle that she had just drunk and smashed it at Brother Hai's head. What she hated the most was those bastards who beat people up without warning. The two cooperated well and scored a perfect score. Qin Etian's move was neat and unexpected. Who would have thought that such a charming little girl could be so experienced and ruthless? After the fight, she said with a happy face, "Mr. Fang, I love watching you fight for me." Fang Yan looked innocent. "You were the one who hurt him. What did it have to do with me? I only grabbed the tendons of the other person's hand, so that his body couldn't move." Brother Hai's head was in a daze, and his body was on the verge of collapsing. "Brothers, give me." Before he could finish his words, he fell to the ground with a thud. His eyes were closed and he fainted. The fat boss stared at the scene in front of him with his eyes wide open. He had already mentally prepared himself for the worst. He thought that his head would definitely be split open. But why was the person who hit him lying on the ground with his head bleeding? "Damn, how dare you bully our Brother Hai?" A man with a buzz cut grabbed the bottle in his hand and rushed at Fang Yan. Fang Yan felt even more wronged. "Please open your dog eyes and see clearly, okay? I'm not the one who hit him. Can you not accuse a good person? Is there any truth in this world?" As Fang Yan thought of this, he slapped the man with a buzz cut and sent him flying. Another man followed closely behind. Seeing that Fang Yan slapped his companion away, he wanted to turn around and escape. But his body's inertia made him continue to rush at Fang Yan. He was in a dilemma. Fang Yan didn't want to make things difficult for him. He suddenly lifted his leg and kicked the man's body into the air. He flew toward the glass door of the noodle house. "My door!" the Fatso boss shouted. Fang Yan used the Fang Plum Blossom steps, crossed his legs, and pounced towards the man's body. He reached out and grabbed the man's collar. Just as the man's body was about to hit the glass door, Fang Yan forcefully pulled him back. The man's heart was racing, and he was panting. He looked at Fang Yan gratefully and said, "Thank you." Bang! Qin Etian smashed the bottle on his head and said with a smile, "You're welcome." "How did you knock him down?" Fang Yan asked. Qin Etian stared at Fang Yan and said, "Aren't we fighting now?" "Yeah. Then why can't I defeat him? I mean, we have already subdued him, and he has temporarily lost the ability to cause harm. Actually, there is no need to beat him up like this." "I'm sorry," Qin Etian said with a red face. I'm too excited. The last man with the pigtail saw Haiji and his two companions being easily dealt with like tofu. His face was full of fear and disbelief. Seeing Fang Yan and the violent girl looking at him with unfriendly eyes, the man with the pigtail picked up a bottle from the table and asked, "Can I do it myself?" Bang! He smashed the bottle on his head. Because he didn't use enough strength, his head was broken, but the bottle was still intact. Blood flowed out from his hair, quickly dyeing his acne-filled face red. "The bottle isn't broken." Qin Yitian looked at him and said, "I'll do it again," the man with the pigtail said. Bang! The man used more strength, but the bottle still didn't break. The man with the pigtail was so anxious that he was about to cry. He once again smashed the bottle on his head and shouted, "Break! Still not broken. I'll let you break. Still not broken. I'll let you break. Break, break, break." The man with the braid kept smashing his own head with the beer bottle. The sound of banging was endless. Fang Yan couldn't bear to look at it. Just how bad was this guy's luck? He actually chose such a sturdy bottle. The man with the pigtail's head was dripping with blood. His entire face was also dyed red with blood. He wiped the blood off his face and looked at Qin Yitian with a sobbing tone. "Can I change the bottle?" All right. Qin Yitian waved his hand impatiently. "You can lie down." "Thank you," the man with the pigtail said gratefully. He quickly laid down on the ground, closed his eyes and pretended that he was dead. The boss of Fatso was stunned by this scene. He had been running the shop for more than 20 years, and he had experienced many fights between punks in his noodle shop. But he had never encountered something like this. Bullying could actually be done in a different way. Fang Yan walked in front of the boss of Fatso and asked, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." The boss of Fatso shook his head. "It's good that you're fine," Fang Yan said with a smile. "Thank you for your noodle. Also, you forgot to collect the money for the wine just now. I saw that the two of you were chatting happily, and you were talking about your childhood. When I was young, I also liked a girl in our village. I went out to open a noodle shop to earn money, planning to return to the village to marry her when I had enough money. But when I returned, she was already married and had a baby. I didn't mean anything else. I just wanted to give you two a few bottles of wine," the boss of Fatso said with a nostalgic expression. "Just think of it as a memory for myself," Qin Yitian said. "I'll accept the wine," Qin Yitian said. "Please accept my gift as well. No need to be so polite. What do you want to give me?" the boss of Fatso asked. "Someone will come to see you tomorrow." The boss of Fatso's mouth twitched, but he couldn't help but say, "Girl, it's not that I want to criticize you, but you're so beautiful. You already have a lot more than a lot of people. You don't need to fabricate a noble background for yourself. In my opinion, having a kind and honest heart is more noble than anything else." "You're right," Qin Yitian smiled and said. "My family will come to see you tomorrow." "Haha, that's more like it. Family is family. Why do you have to say family?" "When you say family, I immediately think of the 4 big families of the Republic of China. It's too unbelievable." Fang Yan and Qin Yitian said their goodbyes and left. They knew that the people following behind them would arrange a very comfortable place for Brother Hai. Fang Yan walked in front. Qin Yitian followed behind. The night was deep, the snow had stopped. The traffic on the road gradually lessened. The pedestrians were nowhere to be seen. The entire Yinjing city was quiet, as if it only belonged to the two of them. Everything was asleep. The prince and princess came to visit their people. "This boss is an interesting person," Fang Yan said with a smile, opening a small noodle house, holding on to a small hope. After a busy day, drinking a cup of hot wine, eating a few peanuts, listening to a few old songs or a section of the 3 Kingdoms. It's not a waste of life. Qin Yitian walked 2 steps quickly, walking side by side with Fang Yan, and said with a smile, "Mr. Fang, you're worried that I'll change his life, right? It doesn't have to be rich. Sometimes a little happiness is also happiness, right?" Fang Yan said with a smile. "I know," Qin Yitian said. "In a situation where the enemy is strong and we are weak, he's still willing to stand in front of us. It proves that this person is righteous. After knowing your identity as a teacher, he obviously doesn't like you, but he still doesn't want others to hurt you. It proves that this person is responsible. Such a good person should have a good karma worthy of them. Besides, we drank the wine he gave for free, so we naturally have to give him a gift. Worried that this would make Fang Yan unhappy, Qin Etian patiently explained and said, "If he's willing to keep this peace, he can refuse my kindness. But if he's willing to accept, I'm also happy to give him a better platform and opportunity. What do you think of this?" Fang Yan smiled bitterly and said, "Do you know that you can change someone's life with one word?" "No, it's us," Qin Etian said happily. "It's us who change someone's life together. Mr. Fang, do we have a fight together today?" "Sort of," Fang Yan nodded and said. "That's really nice." Qin Etian's eyebrows bloomed and said with a smile. Fang Yan was very helpless. What's there to be excited about? He used to fight with his friends, and he was often beaten by Yi Rou. Qin Etian seemed to see through Fang Yan's thoughts and said, "This is indeed a trivial matter for you, but for me, it's my first fight with someone. The first time I met you, the first time I folded a paper airplane, the first time I smashed someone's head with a wine bottle. You see, a lot of things happen because of you. Of course, every time I experience it, it enriches my memory. You're not prone to violence, are you?" Fang Yan said with a smile. "Even if I am, I don't have a chance to do anything," Qin Etian said with a sigh. Indeed, if the young lady of the Qin family was not satisfied with a person, she was afraid that before she could do anything, all the hidden dangers would have been solved by someone else. She was noble, elegant and polite. How could she be a fierce girl who smashed someone's head with a wine bottle? When she was very young, the family's housekeeper taught her to maintain etiquette when there were outsiders. Therefore, she could only be so unscrupulous in front of Fang Yan. Qin Etian ran in front of Fang Yan, walked backward, and looked into Fang Yan's eyes with shining eyes. "Fang Yan, do you still remember what I said to you before you left?" "Which one?" "I said that I would repay you," Qin Etian said. "I also said that I don't need it. I will be very angry when I see someone bullying you. If anyone hurts you, I'll skin him alive." Qin Etian's figure was delicate and her eyes were soft, but her tone was extremely fierce and firm. "I don't want the wind to hurt your eyes. I don't want the snow to fall on your shoulders. I don't want anyone to touch a hair of yours. No one. I wanted to repay you before, but now I want to protect you." Chapter 384. I wanted to repay you before, but now I want to protect you. Why was he so touched when a young girl said she wanted to protect him? Qin Etian wasn't childish, and she wasn't just saying it. She was really using her wisdom and ability, and even her life to protect Fang Yan. In the Battle of Zhang Abyss, when Fang Yan was attacked by an expert from the armory, she used her body to help Fang Yan block the bullets. The plane had just landed, and the elites sent by Jiang Junling wanted to take Fang Yan away. She was already prepared. At tonight's charity gala, she and Fang Yan had a tacit understanding, and Jiang Junling lost completely. Fang Yan even knew that she didn't show up at the gala from beginning to end, because she didn't want to put too much pressure on him. She didn't want the Qin family to be hostile to him. If she stood up to support Fang Yan, completely broke off with the general, and brought the Qin family into an unknown and dangerous situation, how would the Qin family look at Fang Yan? She changed into casual clothes, and waited at the entrance of the club like a girl next door. She accepted his invitation to walk all the streets and alleys to see the snow in the city, just because she hadn't seen him for a long time, and she wanted to see him. He thought it was a fleeting encounter, but it was the navigation of her life that she couldn't forget. Qin Etian didn't wait for Fang Yan's objection and rejection. What did it have to do with her? She waved at Fang Yan, and walked towards the side of the street next to the bushes. A black luxury car drove over, and someone jumped out to open the door. Qin Etian bent over to get in the car, and then the luxury car drove away. Fang Yan stood in the snow, not feeling cold. Instead, he felt an ambiguous feeling spread all over his body, making him feel indescribably comfortable and warm. It turned out that no matter men or women, old or young, they all had zero resistance to sweet talk. It turned out that it felt so good to be a sugar daddy. I wish someone would jump out and call me a gigolo right now, Fang Yan thought to himself. When Fang Yin came back to his senses, he found that there were no people in this world of ice and snow, and there were no cars. He couldn't even stop a taxi. This put him in a difficult position. Just now, with Qin Etienne accompanying him, he didn't feel tired no matter how far he walked. But now, it was unacceptable for him to walk back alone to the Maple Leaf Club. Fang Yin suddenly felt that Qin Etienne was a liar. He had promised not to let the wind hurt his eyes, and not to let the snow fall on his shoulders. Now he was about to be frozen into an ice sculpture. But he had gone home to sleep in a luxury car. Is that what you promised me? I'd rather believe that there are ghosts in the world than believe a woman's stupid mouth. Who said that? Fang Yin thought that it made sense. Fang Yin felt empty in his heart. He felt insulted. Since it was a liar, he should take away what he wanted to cheat. You waved your sleeves without taking away a cloud. How could I, the victim, cry to others? When Fang Yin was worried, a black car silently leaned against him. The door opened, and a middle-aged man wearing glasses came out. He looked Fang Yin up and down and asked, "Fang Yin." "Uncle Lin, it's me." Fang Yin recognized the man with glasses and said respectfully, "Come with me. Now." "All right," Fang Yin said. Fang Yin got into the car, and Uncle Lin followed him and sat in the back seat. The door was closed, and the car moved forward again. Fang Yin looked at Uncle Lin and said with a smile, "Uncle Lin, long time no see." Uncle Lin's name was Lin Donghai. He came from Swallow Dock, and was of the same generation as Fang Yan's father, Fang Yixing. Because of his outstanding talent, he was taken by Yi Daoling, one of the 3 tigers of the Yi family, to engage in economic research. It could be said that he was Yi Daoling's first assistant, an absolute confidant. Lin Donghai came to find Fang Yin at this time, because Yi Daoling was in a hurry to see him. This was also the reason why Fang Yin didn't hesitate to follow Lin Donghai into the car. Some things should probably be settled. But what Fang Yin didn't understand wasn't this progress a bit too fast? Was it because Swallow Dock's power didn't decrease? Or was it because others also wanted to use this opportunity to suppress those rich families' heads that were too high? There were some things that Fang Yin couldn't not think about seriously. "The director wants to see you." Lin Donghai looked at Fang Yin and said expressionlessly. Perhaps it was because he dealt with numbers all day. Lin Donghai looked a bit strict and stiff. But Fang Yin knew from Yi Fengxing that Lin Donghai had always been deeply trusted by Yi Daoling. The main person in charge of Yi Daoling's promotion of the urban agricultural household financial income ratio adjustment was mainly Lin Donghai. People with ability should be respected by others. Fang Yin maintained the necessary respect and kindness to Lin Donghai. Seeing people from Swallow Dock outside, after all, he was more friendly than others. This was an innate regional feeling. Yi Daoling had a research room in the Yanhuang think tank under the jurisdiction of the national minister. He was the director of that research room. So when Lin Donghai said that the director wanted to see Fang Yin, it meant that Yi Daoling wanted to see Fang Yin. "Isn't it too late?" Fang Yin said with a smile. "The director just finished reading a document. There is still some time before going to bed." Lin Donghai explained patiently. Facing this young man, these bystanders might have a clearer understanding. That was a very important position. It would be a lie to say that they were not tempted. The director also wanted to fight for it. But soon there was a rumor that the position had been decided. A core figure of the general family would be the head of that department. This made the director completely give up. Since such news had already been released, it meant that the big shots above had already made a decision. If they continued to fight, it would be insensible. However, the world turned upside down overnight. The appointment letter suddenly came down, the rumor was shattered, and Yi Daoling became the head of that department. He became a core figure in the economic field. Yi Daoling was still a little confused. He didn't understand what happened. Why did this fat piece of meat suddenly fall into the plate in front of him? Layers of information feedback, and the truth was also revealed layer by layer. Everyone knew the truth. The reason why this appointment came so suddenly and so pleasantly was because a few kids had a fight in Yanjing. Yi Daoling wanted to see Fang Yin. He felt that he had to talk to Fang Yin. In order to show that he valued Fang Yin, He even sent his first assistant, Lin Donghai, instead of his secretary. One had to know that Lin Donghai could represent Yi Daoling on some levels. They were both from Swallow Dock, so there was an element of homesickness. West Court. This was where some of the important leaders of the national ministries lived. It was quiet here, and it was close to work. It only took a few minutes to walk from West Court to the State Council. The car stopped in front of a small building. The driver got off first and helped Fang Yan, and Lin Donghai opened the door. Lin Donghai made an inviting gesture, indicating that Fang Yan should enter first. Fang Yan pushed open the red door of the small courtyard and saw a middle-aged man in a white tang suit practicing boxing in the courtyard. He was practicing the Yi family's white tiger fist. It was forceful and fierce. He moved and jumped like a ferocious tiger hunting its prey. He was fierce and courageous and extremely powerful. The white tiger fist was divided into 3 levels: transformation, godly and tiger. With Yi Daoling's current performance, he had actually entered the tiger stage. He turned into a tiger and used his body to raise the tiger. The tiger gave birth to wind, and the tiger's power could hurt people's internal organs. This set of boxing technique was only at the intermediate level. Fang Yan and Lin Donghai were both knowledgeable people. They stood by the side and didn't disturb him. With an extremely suppressed tiger roar, Yi Daoling punched out. The wind from the fist swept past, and the pine trees in the courtyard rustled. Countless snowflakes fell, and the scene was extremely beautiful. After Yi Daoling finished, the secretary beside him quickly brought a warm towel. Yi Daoling took the towel and wiped the sweat from his forehead. He threw the towel into the secretary's hands and strode in front of Fang Yan, sizing him up with sharp eyes. "Third uncle." Fang Yan respectfully greeted Yi Daoling. He and Yi Fengsheng called each other brothers, so he naturally had to call Yi Daoling the same way Yi Fengsheng called him. Fang Yan. Yi Daoling's face was long and narrow, and his eyebrows were thick. His facial features were tight and angular, making his appearance look extremely aggressive. The Yi family was proud and good-looking. Everyone used the word peacock to describe the Yi family. Of course, Yi Fengsheng was an exception. Yi Daoling had the typical face of the Yi family. He wore a white tang suit, and he gave off a carefree and unrestrained feeling. If one didn't know his identity, no one would think that he would be in a high position at such a young age. Many people think that I got lucky. Don't you think so too? Yi Daoling looked at Fang Yan and asked with a serious expression. Fang Yan's mind turned, and he quickly analyzed the meaning of Yi Daoling's words. First, he must have gotten some kind of benefit, or else no one would think that he got lucky. Second, because he got this benefit, he was pushed to the teeth of the storm, and he even encountered the hostility of some forces. Fang Yan said with a smile. Third uncle, in the eyes of those without abilities, everyone's success depends on luck. Because if it's about ability, it happens to be the part that they lack. Fang Yan's answer obviously didn't satisfy Yi Daoling. His face was still cold as he said, Not only them, even I think so. Although your flattery is natural and smooth, believe me, there are many people who are more skilled than you. If it's a matter of ability, don't tell me that the previous candidates don't have the ability. Don't the others have the ability? Fang Yan, don't underestimate the heroes of the world. Everyone who can climb to this position has their own excellence. The matter that had originally been settled, how could there suddenly be such a shocking reversal? This kind of thing can't tolerate a single mistake, and no one dares to be sloppy in the appointment of personnel. Fang Yan didn't know how to respond. What does this old man want to say? Don't tell me that you still want to beat me up after I helped you out? I won't agree, and Qini Tian won't agree either. I will call Qini Tian. So I really got lucky. Yi Daoling grinned and said. Chapter 385. Fang Yan had come into contact with many people from the Yi family. They were beautiful, arrogant and serious. Apart from Yi Fengsheng, everyone else was upright and square. His impression of Yi Daoling was very vague because when he was young, Yi Daoling was already working outside. During festivals, Yi Daoling could only see him from afar when he drove back. The two of them had almost no interaction. He looked very mature and steady, But he didn't expect Yi Dowling to have such a teasing side. Just a moment ago, he had a serious expression on his face that made people feel pressured. Suddenly he grinned and looked very proud. This was really cute. Yi Dowling was known as the most bad-tempered person in the Yi family. However, such a bad-tempered person was able to mix well in front of the Prime Minister. Naturally, he couldn't be judged by common sense. Fang Yan remembered the words, "Don't underestimate the heroes of the world." "You said I got lucky? So what if I'm just a lucky bastard? Some people want to pick up shit but don't have the luck," Yi Dowling said casually. Lin Donghai frowned slightly. He knew that the walls had ears. Some words should be kept in the heart and not spoken out. However, he knew Yi Dowling's character. He dared to smash the table and cup in front of the Prime Minister. His persuasion was useless. "You dare to think and speak. Third uncle is a real person." Fang Yan smoothly flattered him. He really wasn't convinced. Did someone really want to flatter him? "You're a slippery kid." Yi Dowling walked over and put his arm around Fang Yan's shoulder and said, "Let's go in and have some tea. Let's have a good chat between uncle and nephew. I want to hear how you did it." The house was a classical structure with a lot of primary colored wood. The atmosphere in the tea room was very intimate. Fang Yan and Yi Dowling sat on the mahogany chairs with blankets. The secretary brought over the brewed tea. Yi Dowling waved his hand and said to the secretary, "Take it out. I don't want to drink this kind of crude tea today. No matter if it's a man or a woman from our Swallow Dock. All of us are good at the tea ceremony." He pointed to the tea-making tools in front of him and said to Fang Yan, "You've called me third uncle for so many years, but I've never drunk a bowl of tea you made. Come, I'll give you a chance today." Fang Yan smiled bitterly. He had no choice but to take the tea set and get busy. Fang Yan moved skillfully and quickly brought a cup of brewed black tea to Yi Dowling. Yi Dowling looked at the color of the soup and brought it to his nose to smell the fragrance. He said with emotion, "It's really not easy to drink a cup of good tea outside." Yi Dowling was in a high position. What kind of good tea could he not drink? However, if one wanted to drink good tea like the one from Swallow Dock, it would not be an easy task. It had nothing to do with the tea leaves, but with the person who made the tea. Perhaps Yi Dowling's assistant's ability was outstanding, but things like the way of tea depended on one's cultivation and one's talent. Not a single one could be omitted. If third uncle wants to drink tea, he often goes back to Swallow Dock. Fang Yan said with a smile, "Every household in Swallow Dock is good at brewing tea. Not only good tea, but also good wine. Zhang Mazi's Shadozi, sister-in-law Li's plum wine, and Li Xiaoyan's father's 3-day drunk. They are all excellent wines. Different types of wine have different tastes. Coupled with different moods, it can make people intoxicated. Especially in such weather. Isn't it better to lie in the snow and drink a mouthful of strong wine better than anything?" Yi Dowling laughed and pointed at Fang Yan. "You brat, do you want to bring me into a pit? I pulled you over in the middle of the night to listen to you brag about Swallow Dock's good wine? Aren't I more familiar with it than you? Let me tell you, we drank a lot when we were young. The tricks that you guys used to trick girls are all outdated tricks that we used in the past." "That's right." Fang Yan nodded. "Third uncle is a senior. Naturally, he is much better than us. Tell me." Yi Dowling held the teacup and said, "This is not something that can be completed in a short period of time. You must have put in a lot of effort, right?" Fang Yan knew that he couldn't avoid it, so he repeated what he experienced from the moment he got off the plane. Of course, he only picked the important parts and said what could be said. As for the reason for the conflict, 99.9% of the responsibility was on Jiang Junling. He was a loser who couldn't bear the oppression and humiliation, and had to resist. After listening to Fang Yan's narration, Yi Dowling pondered for a long time. He stared at Fang Yan and said, "Many people think that Jiang Junling lost because he underestimated his opponent. In fact, he lost because of his ability. You are talented, but they don't want to believe it." "Third uncle, I just made a bet with him," Fang Yan said with a smile. "I can afford to lose, but he can't. Not everyone has the courage to go on the card table, and it's such an unfair opponent," Yi Dowling said in a deep voice. "To tell you the truth, I also wanted to gamble like you before. Maybe I had too many scruples, or maybe I didn't have enough courage. It was best to leave it unsettled and delay it until now. I didn't expect to be pushed by you young juniors this time. Third uncle was ready to go. If we didn't have enough power before, we wouldn't have been able to push it. Yi Daoling looked at Fang Yin with a smile and said, "How does it feel to be famous in Yinjing City?" Famous in Yinjing City? Why? Do you think it's just a child's game? Yi Daoling smiled warmly. If it's just your child's fight, the heat will disappear after 2 days of discussion. However, there was a position appointment later, and more people paid attention to it. It's not an exaggeration to say that you are famous in the capital now. To be honest, I really don't want to be famous. Fang Yin said. However, I'm not afraid even if I become famous. Anyway, I'll hide in Huaqing after the new year. People can say whatever they want, think whatever they want. You're quite cunning. Yi Daoling pointed at Fang Yin and said. However, this time is different from the past. You pushed me, which is equivalent to slashing the Jiang family. I'm afraid the Jiang family won't let it go easily, right? I'll deal with it when it comes. Fang Yin said. If I don't slash them, they won't make it easy for me. Since it's like this, then I'll make them feel uncomfortable. I like fairness. Yi Daoling's gaze seriously examined Fang Yin again. He wanted to see if this young man was bluffing or was truly brave. He was very satisfied with the result. The Fang family has a successor. Yi Daoling praised. This time, it's not just your contribution alone. You know this better than me. You guys jumped out and played such a trick. Didn't you just want to force the emperor to abdicate? The Jiang family retreated. It proves that I succeeded in forcing the emperor to abdicate, right? Fang Yin said with a smile. He really wasn't clear about the subsequent events. After he came out of the clubhouse, he met Qin Yitian, who was waiting at the door. The two walked along the way. There was no phone call from the house. Of course, his phone was long gone. At that time, when his clothes exploded, he only cared about his crotch. How could he care about other things? He didn't know if Fengsheng and the others helped him tidy up properly. Did they peek at his phone after tidying up? It's really worrying. Mr. used the red phone. There's a sentence that was very important. The descendants of the sages shed blood and tears. Who would be willing to die for the country? Yi Daoling said emotionally. No matter what Mr. thinks in his heart, at least he stood up at the crucial moment, and this statement is very powerful. Mr. is the soul of Swallow Dock. Fang Yin said. With him here, he won't let us children be bullied. Yes. Swallow Dock has its mission. Mr. has Mr.'s mission. Since I got a great bargain this time, I naturally have to take up my own mission, Yi Daoling said. Zhu Zaidan's cultivation was obstructed. I plan to let him go to North Sea to train for 3 years. The sky is high and the sea is wide. Maybe there's another opportunity there. Li Xiaotian isn't young anymore. It's time for him to come out and do something. There's also Ruan Qian. I've seen that child's information. He's smart and careful, but his temper is too soft. I've specially chosen a good place for him. Swallow Dock's younger generation depends on you guys. Fang Yin nodded and said, You're the elder. It's up to you how to arrange it. I think their families won't object. What about you? Yi Daoling asked. You still have to go back to Huaqing to be a teacher? I still have a lot of things to think about. Fang Yin said. Maybe Huaqing is more suitable for me. Then go. Yi Daoling said. There's something you might or might not know. What is it? Fang Yin curiously asked. Your grandpa once came to our Yi family to propose marriage. He said he wanted to betroth our Tung Wen to you, but I kicked him out. Yi Daoling said with an emotional expression. Tung Wen is the child of our Yi family, who has the highest chance of achieving extraordinary success in martial arts. She's the darling of our Yi family. How can we let your Fang family take advantage of her? We naturally won't agree. Then you agree now? Fang Yin asked. No, Yi Daoling said straightforwardly. Since you won't agree, why are you telling me this? Yi Daoling smiled maliciously and said, I'm afraid that you'll become arrogant and think that you can trick our little princess away just by helping me. That won't do, that's a different matter. I can't give Yi Tung to you. You can't have dreams. What if it comes true? Fang Yin waved his hand and said, "Third uncle, what kind of person do you think I am? How can I have any ideas about Yi Tungwen? You also know that I've been beaten by her many times before. How can I marry her and get beaten every day? That's all Grandpa's random matchmaking. Yi Tungwen and I are impossible." Gah! The door was pushed open. A white-clothed girl stood at the entrance of the tea room. Chapter 386. White clothes, short hair, cold and aloof. Like a plum blossom in the snow, like an unsheathed sword. Her facial features looked extremely familiar. It was the Yi Ro that Fang Yin mentioned just now. Fang Yin didn't expect to see Yi Ro at this time and place. He couldn't help but grin. As he smiled, the smile on his face froze into a thick layer of frost. He thought of what he said just now. Although most of what he said was the truth, Yi Ro did beat him a lot in the past. Who likes to hear the truth these days? Does Fatso like to hear others say he's fat? Does a poor person like to hear others say he's poor? Does a writer like to hear others say he's pretentious? He doesn't like any of them. Fang Yin blinked his eyes and looked at Yi Ro standing at the door with a face full of amazement. He pretended to be confused and asked, "Third uncle, is this your daughter? When I was young, I heard people say that only the Yi family in Swallow Dock looks the most beautiful. Even now, people still use the word peacock to describe the Yi family. One is that you are arrogant, and the other is that you are beautiful. Although this lady isn't as beautiful as her sister, Yi Ro, and her temperament may be slightly inferior, it's best to use a poem to describe her. Her charming eyes shyly close, and her red lips open in a smile. The wind sweeps the grape belt, the sunlight pomegranate skirt. Hibiscus out of clear water, nature goes to carve. Looking back and smiling, all the beauties of Swallow Dock lose their color." Fang Yin looked at Yi Dowling with a face full of sincerity and said, "Third uncle, Yi Ro is a rare genius of the Yi family in 100 years. She's also the leader of the younger generation of our Swallow Dock. It's not an exaggeration to describe her as the family's treasure, or the country's treasure. I naturally don't deserve such a girl. I don't even deserve to carry her shoes. I know this very well. But this girl, I fell in love at first sight. My heart is also beating like crazy. Third uncle, if you don't believe me, you can touch me. You can see it even without touching. Don't you think my face is a bit flushed right now? Third uncle, please help me fulfill my wish, and give me this girl's name and phone number." "Fang Yin." Yi Ro interrupted Fang Yin. Fang Yin widened his eyes at Yi Ro and said, "Girl, you know me?" Yi Ro stood at the door and expressionlessly looked at Fang Yin and said, "Didn't you always want to know the power of the Tao querying realm? I only told your sister Yi Ro. I happen to have a little time now. Of and of. Of Yi. I have of time. Of. Of the road. Of king of yin of. Of. Yi of the. Of. Clang, clang, clang. The teapot and teacups on the table were swept up by the wind and smashed towards the wall in the distance. Lu Dowling's heart was bleeding. This was the eye of the rain that he got from Jingda Kiln. He was only willing to let people use it to entertain important guests. What was wrong with him today? Why did he take it out to entertain Fang Yin? It wasn't like he didn't know that this pair of enemies would fight whenever they met. Kacha kacha. The porcelain hit the wall and shattered, and the thin porcelain bowl turned into pieces. The wind was strong, and Fang Yan's hair and clothes were blown away. The wind and waves were like knives. The air in front was emptied, and the energy coming from behind was Yi Gentle's real killer move. Fang Yan didn't take it head on. He slapped the mahogany seat beneath him with both hands, and flew through the window towards the courtyard. Yi Ro struck out with her palm again. Instead of falling, she rose up and rushed out of the courtyard. Bang, bang, bang. Ah! The battle outside was in full swing, and from time to time, Fang Yan's miserable cries could be heard. Yi Dowling held the teacup in his hand, and leisurely drank the hot tea in the cup. After drinking the dark red tea, his gaze fell back to the broken tiles on the ground. He couldn't help but take a deep breath, and felt his teeth hurt. A good horse with a good saddle, a good teapot with a good cup. Yi Dowling sighed softly. The teapot is broken, and this is the only surviving teacup. It's an awkward situation. What a pity. 10 minutes later, the sound of fighting outside stopped. Yi Dowling got up and walked into the courtyard. Yi Ro was nowhere to be seen, and only Fang Yen was lying miserably in the snow. Yi Dowling squatted in front of Fang Yen and asked with a smile, I heard that your heart of Tai Chi broke through again. What level are you at now? The heart of Tai Chi is a new thing. No one has gone through it, and you have to figure it out yourself. Logically speaking, you shouldn't have been beaten so badly by Ro Ro, right? If the one lying here was Yi Ro, what would you do? Fang Yen asked. This question is really awkward. I would probably get the guards to drag you out and shoot you. Yi Dowling said lightly. This place was heavily guarded, and every small building was guarded by guards. Yi Dowling's words were honest. Then how do you still have the nerve to ask me why I lost so badly? Fang Yen roared. This is your Yi family's territory. Can I beat her up? It's not a big deal for a man to be beaten up by a woman. Yi Dowling said. Besides, not everyone is qualified to be beaten up by Ro Ro. I watched her grow up, and I've never seen her beat anyone up like this. You are indeed luckier than others. Fang Yen looked at Yi Dowling with a bitter mouth and said, Third uncle, why are you doing this? What do you mean? Yi Dowling looked innocent. We were chatting and casually asked a few questions about your feelings. Is there some unspeakable secret? You tricked me. Fang Yen said. Yi Dowling chuckled and said, I learned from you. Your Yin family's kids' methods are much darker than mine. I represent justice. Okay, I'm better at this kind of official article than you. Yi Dowling interrupted Fang Yan's words and said, Justice represents living. Evil is only because you are already dead. Fang Yan felt that these people really understood the essence of this world better than him. Yi Dowling patted Fang Yan's shoulder and said, It's late, go back to sleep. I think I'm injured. Can I rest here for the night? Fang Yan asked. No. You don't have to specially prepare a room for me. Just let me and Yi Ro stay in the same room. Fang Yan said. Don't treat me as a guest. Yi Ro can give me the bed. She can sleep on the floor. Dong Hai, see the guest out. Third uncle. Yi Dowling was too lazy to pay attention to this guy and returned to the living room. Lin Dong Hai stood next to Fang Yan and looked at Fang Yan, who was lying in the snow and refused to get up. He said, Fang Yan, I'll send you back. I'm asleep. Fang Yan closed his eyes and said. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a loud snore. Lin Dong Hai looked into the room. Yi Dowling was so angry that he almost dropped the only teacup in his hand. He pointed at Fang Yan in the snow and said, This guy, he is the best spouse you chose for yourself? Does he look like a young hero at all? Does he look like a Tai Chi grandmaster? He is simply a scoundrel. Yi Ro said lightly. She had a clearer understanding of Fang Yan than anyone else. Or rather, she had a clearer understanding of him than everyone else. Some people said that he watched Fang Yan grow up. Only Yi Ro was qualified to say that she beat him up. Yi Dowling looked at Yi Ro in surprise and said, When that old fox Fang Yan went to the Yi family to challenge them, I knew he was up to no good. But his words were too harsh. You guys were tricked into accepting the challenge, and I didn't say much. A challenge is a challenge. Who has the Yi family been afraid of? But what I don't understand is that one challenge is enough. Winning once is equivalent to winning for a lifetime. Why do you keep being tricked year after year and constantly accept their challenges? After that, I heard that you left watching for this kid. I also know the details of you challenging the Thousand Leaves military department for him. You convinced the elder ancestor to allow him to go in and kowtow. In these few years, has the elder ancestor seen any other child? Only a few elders of the older generation would meet and chat for a long time during the New Year and other festivals. Later, you accepted his invitation and were brought around by that kid all over Swallow Dock. The family had no choice but to take a stance on your matter. I went back a few days ago to visit the old ancestor and also to discuss your matter with your father and second uncle. The old ancestor said that she wouldn't get involved in your matter. Even if she didn't get involved, your father and second uncle, and I still had to get involved. My attitude is still the same as before. I don't agree with the two of you being together. Ro, Your personality is light and your thinking is simple. You are wholeheartedly pursuing the martial Tao. And we also hope that you can shine on this Tao. If you can enter the Tao-seeking realm, or go a step further, and enter the legendary heavenly Tao realm, it will naturally be of great help to our Yi family. We all have selfish motives for this. Another reason to object is that we feel that Fang Yin isn't suitable for you. Although I call him a scoundrel, this kid is enlightened at a young age. His heart of Taiji has broken through twice and his strength isn't below yours. This time, he plotted in secret and forced the abdication of the Maple Leaf Society. Not only, sir, how many people in our Swallow Dock have been played by him? He's the type of person who can control clouds and rain with a flip of his hand, but it's because he's too smart, too full of ideas and too ambitious that we feel that you can't be with him. Chapter 387. Yi Dowling had a smile on his face and looked like he was trying his best to persuade him. He said, "You are stubborn and unwilling to admit defeat. So you need a more gentle man. He can take care of you, assist you and protect you with peace of mind. What you need is not a storm, but a gentle breeze and drizzle. Not a stormy sea, just a sunny day." Everything in the world pays attention to the complementarity of yin and yang. Emotions are the same. Your temperament is too rigid, so you can't find another more rigid one. Chopping cotton with a kitchen knife. The knife doesn't fall, but the cotton still falls. A rock colliding with a rock. That would result in both sides suffering heavy losses and being smashed to pieces. I think Bai Xiu is not bad, right? Of course, I'm not saying you have to choose Bai Xiu. We have many talents in Swallow Dock, and young heroes are everywhere in Four Corner City. Take your time, and you will find a suitable one, right? There is another reason to object. Yiro looked at the knight outside the door and said softly. "What?" Yi Dowling asked. "You are afraid," Yiro said. Yi Dowling smiled and said, "What are we afraid of? What do we have to be afraid of? Fang Yin is not bad. His performance this time is amazing, but it's not enough for us to be afraid of him. If you are old, and no one in the younger generation of Yi family can surpass Fang Yin, are you not afraid? No one in the younger generation of Yi family can surpass Fang Yin, and I'm married to Fang Yin. Are you not afraid? At that time, will Yi family or Fang family be the leader? At that time, can Yi family still maintain the power of the number one family in Swallow Dock? This is the most important reason to object," Yiro said. Yi Dowling sighed softly and said, "This kind of thing needs to be honest. We all know you are smart, and you did do this in the past. But in the end I can't say it. Your father, your second uncle, and I are over 100 years old, and we still have to worry about the development of a child. It's really embarrassing and shameful. But what you said is indeed what we are most worried about." Yi Dowling was slightly annoyed that his thoughts were exposed by Yi Wenro, but he didn't hide it anymore. If Fang Yin was just an outstanding youth from Swallow Dock, we wouldn't have to worry about this. As the seniors of Swallow Dock and Fang Yan's elders, we are happy to see more outstanding youngsters rise to prominence. We still have this breadth of mind. Otherwise, your father wouldn't have stood up at Swallow Dock to help Fang Yin force her to abdicate. However, we saw the difference in your attitude towards Fang Yin and your feelings towards Fang Yin. If Fang Yin becomes a member of the Yi family, or rather, you become a member of the Fang family, the Yi family and the Fang family will be even closer, even becoming relatives who will advance and retreat together. We have no choice but to consider these questions. Although Yi Fengsheng is talented, that is only in terms of martial arts. Yi Fengsheng and the others are smart, but they have never been outstanding in terms of martial arts. Yi Zixin and Yi Ziming are also good young people, but they are still lacking compared to Yi Fengsheng and Yi Fengxing. Yi Xiaoye and Yi Xiaonian are both children, and they look obedient and sensible. They might have a bright future. However, they are still too young. You are the most perceptive in our Yi family, and you are also well-versed in worldly affairs. You are a top talent in both strategy and martial arts. Only you can compete with a monster like Fang Yin. However, you treat him differently. Just as you know, Yi Fengxing sees him as a big brother, and only follows his lead. If you marry into the Fang family, The two of you will help each other and cooperate with each other. At that time, will the Yi family still be able to maintain its position as the #1 family in Swallow Dock? The relationship between the Yi family and the Fong family. Will the Yi family lead the Fong family, or will the Yi family become the Fong family's vassal? Can't the elder ancestor see the hidden danger? However, the elder ancestor said that she won't get involved in this matter. She won't say anything, and she won't say anything. She can choose not to participate, but the elder ancestor is a woman after all. She can't bear to see her favorite child being wronged. However, us men of the Yi family, can we not get involved? Can we not stand up and oppose? Wen, protecting the Yi family is our responsibility. It's not convenient for your father to say it, and your second uncle doesn't want to say it, so let me be the bad guy. Yi Wen sighed softly and said, You are worried that you can't protect it, worried that the owner of the Swallow Dock will change, so you came to restrict my freedom. Is this your way of protecting? Yi Dowling smiled and said, I know you look down on this cheating method, and I also know you think third uncle is despicable and shameless. Wen, this world is really not as simple as you think. You think it's black or white, right or wrong, friend or foe. No, it's far more complicated than you think. Although I am not as good as you on the path of martial arts, I am very clear that it is countless times more complicated and difficult than climbing the path of martial arts. Can you understand? I understand, Yi Wen said. You are the pride of our Yi family, Yi Dowling said with relief. You are also my pride. Yi Wen glanced at Fong Yen, who was lying in the snow, and said, Give him a blanket. Then, she turned and walked to her room on the second floor. Yi Dowling's face was full of bitterness and said, You still don't understand. Of course, Fong Yen wouldn't sleep in a snow nest. While no one was paying attention, he quickly climbed up the pillar to the second floor, then turned over and jumped into Yi Wen's room. Yi Wen laid on the bed, as if she was already asleep, not moving at all. Fong Yen closed the window, glanced at the layout of the room, then spread out the blanket in his arms to the corner of the room, then consciously fell asleep on the ground. Yi Wen, Fong Yen called out. I'm asleep, Yi Wen said. A smile appeared on Fong Yan's lips as he said, Good night. Yi Wen didn't reply, and Fong Yen didn't speak either. One was sleeping on the bed, and the other was lying on the ground. The two were so close that they could hear each other's breathing. However, the room was silent. At first, it was difficult for Fong Yen to fall asleep. It was the first time he lived in the same room with Yi Wen, so he was naturally excited. But when he heard Yi Wen's breathing becoming more and more stable, he knew that Yi Wen was really asleep. She wasn't worried at all that he would do anything to her. This made Fong Yen feel like he was a failure. As a man, being ignored by a woman like this, wasn't this too shameful? Fong Yen quickly abandoned this thought, thinking that as a man, being trusted by a woman so much, in fact, wasn't it a glorious thing? How could a man not be a little aggressive and dangerous? Did she treat you as a pet or a best friend? Fong Yen was irritated and accidentally fell asleep. When he woke up, the sky was already bright. The beauty on the bed was nowhere to be found, leaving behind a fragrant room. Fong Yen ran to the bathroom to wash up. There was a toothbrush and a white cup on the sink. The dark blue toothbrush and the white cup looked very beautiful. There were spare toothbrushes in the cabinet, which seemed to be specially prepared for Fong Yen. Fong Yen hesitated for a long time, but he didn't choose the new toothbrush that hadn't been opened. Instead, he held the white toothbrush in his hand. I can't waste it, Fong Yen thought. So he secretly smeared toothpaste on the white toothbrush and happily brushed his teeth. As expected, the toothbrush used by others was really easy to use. Not only was the hair soft, but there was also a residual fragrance on it. After brushing his teeth, he felt refreshed and his happiness index doubled. Holding the white toothbrush, Fong Yen looked at it from left to right and put it in front of his nose to smell it from time to time, feeling that he was really cute. After washing his face with Yi Wen's towel, Fong Yen reluctantly walked out of the bathroom. He went downstairs to the living room and saw Lin Donghai sitting on the sofa reading the newspaper. Seeing Fong Yen go downstairs, Lin Donghai closed the newspaper in his hand and said, There's breakfast on the table. Thank you. Fang Yin ran to the table and sat down. As expected, there was delicious breakfast on the table. There was porridge that had been boiled to a pulp, and a large plate of steaming white steamed buns. There was a small plate of green vegetables, and a small plate of pickled vegetables. It was appetizing at first glance. While eating the porridge, Fang Yin asked, "Where's third uncle?" The director went to work. "Where's Yi Wen-wan?" "Missy went out early in the morning." "Where did she go?" "I don't know." Fang Yin didn't get any reliable information from Lin Donghai, so he buried his head in the food. After eating, he called Yi Fengsheng and asked where they were now. After knowing that they didn't go back that night, and directly stayed in the hotel below Maple Leaf Club, Fang Yin asked Lin Donghai for a car, and rushed to Maple Leaf Club. While sitting in the car, Fang Yin sent a message to Yi Ro and asked, "Where are you?" In the past, Fang Yin didn't have Yi Ro's phone number at all. Of course, even if he had, he didn't dare to call. After coming back this time, the relationship between the two improved greatly. A few days ago, they often took a walk around Swallow Dock, so Fang Yin took the opportunity to get Yi Ro's phone number. Of course, Yi Ro just didn't use her phone often. "On the way," Yi Ro replied. "On the way where?" "Swallow Dock." "I'll go back later," Fang Yin said. Yi Ro didn't respond. "If I knew you were going back, I would go back with you. It's good to have company," Fang Yin said. "I drove here," Fang Yin added. Yi Ro still didn't respond. Yi Ro was a goddess. It was normal for a goddess to ignore a loser's message. However, Fang Yin still felt hurt. So Fang Yin used his trump card and said to Yi Ro, "I used your toothbrush." Chapter 388. Fang Yin waited for a long time, but he still didn't receive any response from Yi Ro. This was the phone Fang Yin asked Lin Donghai for, so that he could contact Yi Fengsheng and the others. Even the SIM card was prepared by Lin Donghai. Fang Yin called the customer service number of the mobile company, and found that there were still hundreds of yuan in the card. There shouldn't be a problem of not receiving information because of arrears. That was, Yi Ro was not willing to respond. Fang Yin felt very strange. According to Yi Ro's character, she shouldn't keep silent when encountering such a thing. If she didn't explode in silence, she would perish in silence. Yi Ro couldn't perish, so there was only one truth. Fang Yin suddenly began to miss watching. Fang Yin met Yi Fengsheng and the others in the hall on the first floor of the Maple Leaf Club. Chen Yanqing was a civil servant, so she got up early and went to work. Wang Kaixian was also called back by his family. After what happened last night, his family was naturally worried. There were some things that needed to be clarified. They had offended such a powerful family, so they had to think about how to solve the problem. Li Xiaotian was taken away by his brother Li Xiaolong. Only Yi Fengsheng, Zhu Zaidan, and Ruan Jing accompanied Fang Yin back to Swallow Dock. They first asked the club to send a car to Nanshan restaurant where they had dinner last night. Their cars were all parked there, so they had to drive back. Fang Yin's pants exploded, and his phone and wallet were put away by Yi Fengsheng. Yi Fengsheng asked Fang Yin where he went last night. They didn't have his phone number, so they couldn't find him. They were worried that he would come back for them, so they stayed in the hotel under the Maple Leaf Club. They even helped Fang Yin get a room, but they didn't expect that Fang Yin would return after waiting for a whole night. Fang Yin didn't hide it. He said with a smile, "Your third uncle sent someone to take him away." "My third uncle?" "Yes, Yi Dowling." "Yi Dowling?" Fang Yin nodded. "Why did he call you?" Yi Fengsheng asked with a puzzled expression. Then, he instantly understood and smiled. "I've received a call from my family. I really have to thank you for this. Third uncle probably didn't expect that this big pie would fall on his head, right?" "What are you thanking me for?" Fang Yin asked with a smile. "This is the result of everyone's hard work. This is Swallow Dock's victory." Zhu Zaidan was also very happy and said, "Exactly. Third uncle also came from Swallow's Dock. In the future, if Swallow's Dock has any problems, won't he stand up and speak up for us? We won't be bullied by others," Wan Qian said with a chuckle. Fang Yin looked at Zhu Zaidan and said, "Third uncle also has arrangements for you. I'm afraid Zidan will go to the North Sea after the new year. I hope you can find some inspiration there. Xiao Tian also had to go out to work, so he would probably be assigned to work for third uncle. Wan Qian also wants to come out, but as for where he placed it, third uncle didn't say, so I can't ask. It sounds really mysterious. What about me? What about me? Yi Fengsheng looked expectantly at Fang Yan and asked, Did third uncle say where I'm going? No. Fang Yan shook his head. You all have arrangements, why don't I? Yi Fengsheng said angrily. The young people of Swallow's Dock had all gone out to do their own things. Only he stayed in the village with a group of old people and children. How could he stand it? Which young person didn't want to go out and explore? Which young person didn't want to see the outside world? Fang Yan knew that Yi Fengsheng especially envied those soldiers who could go to the battlefield. He really wanted to fight on the battlefield. However, the Yi clan obviously had no intention of letting him go. Fang Yan patted his shoulder and said, Don't worry. The next time we meet, we'll go talk to third uncle. You should go out and see. Staying in Swallow's Dock all the time is not good for martial arts. Exactly. You have to help me talk to him. Yi Fengsheng seemed to have grabbed onto a life-saving straw. Before, your Tai Chi heart was almost dead. It was only after you went to Flower City that it was revived and had a second breakthrough. You can use yourself as an example. Third uncle will definitely agree. I'll try, Fang Yan said. I heard that my sister also came to Yanjing. You didn't see her? Yi Fengsheng looked at Fang Yan and asked. I saw her, Fang Yan said. Hee, I knew you would definitely see her, Yi Fengsheng said with a smile. Then, he suddenly looked at Fang Yan with a shocked expression and said, My mom called me today and said that cousin didn't go back last night. You didn't come to find us either. You two didn't go to a hotel to get a room, did you? How is that possible? Fang Yan said impatiently. Third uncle's house has a room. Do we still need to go to a hotel? You and my sister both slept at third uncle's house? Yes. You too. Don't misunderstand, Fang Yan hurriedly explained. Although I slept in the same room as your sister, she slept on the bed, and I slept on the floor. We didn't do anything. Yi Fengsheng's face was purplish red. He looked very uncomfortable. It was unknown if he was angry at the news that Fang Yan slept with his sister, Yi Ro, or excited to hear this secret. Either way, his expression didn't look right. Even Zhu Zaidan and Ruan Qian were shocked when they heard the news. They stared at Fang Yan with wide eyes and faces full of disbelief. You really slept with Yi Ro? He said he didn't do anything, Ruan Qian said. We slept in the same room and didn't do anything. Do you think we'll believe you? You're not a decent person. I can't do anything if you don't believe me, Fang Yan said helplessly. Fengsheng, use your phone to call your sister. Yi Fengsheng obediently took out his phone and casually asked while searching for the number. Why? She's at Swallow Dock, so I won't be going back for now. Why? I used your sister's toothbrush to brush my teeth this morning. I told her, but she didn't react at all. I feel like something's wrong, Fang Yan said. Zhu Zaidan sneered and said, If I were you, I wouldn't go back either. I'll never return to Swallow Dock. Ruan Qian looked at Fang Yan with a face full of sympathy and said, I'll immediately get someone to buy you a plane ticket back to Huaqing. You should hurry up and leave. Even if you used her toothbrush, there's no need to tell her. Aren't you digging your own grave? Yi Fengsheng finally woke up from his state of shock and looked at Fang Yan and said, My sister is a neat freak. When I was young, I carried her cat, and she washed the cat several times. I used her toothbrush, not the other way around, Fang Yan explained. I'm not a neat freak. When Fang Yan drove home, his mother Lu Wan quickly came up to him. She looked at Fang Yan worriedly and said, Your grandpa wants to see you. He's asked a few times. He wants you to see him immediately when you come back. Fang Yan, are you all right? Don't worry, Fang Yan smiled and said. I'll be fine. Where's my dad? He went to Yanjing to attend a pen meeting, Lu Wan said. Recently, he's been preparing for an art exhibition with a group of art friends, so he's been very busy these few days. As long as he likes it, let him be. Fang Yan smiled and said. Lu Wan nodded and said, I've never stopped him. He can do whatever he likes. Fang Yan put his arm around his mother's shoulder and pushed her into the house, saying, "I'm going to talk to Grandpa." "Go," Luan said. "Don't make your grandpa angry. If you do something wrong, you have to admit it immediately." "Mom, I know," Fang Yin said with a smile and said. Fang Yin walked into the backyard and heard the sound of chess being played in his grandpa's room. Fang Yin pushed the door and entered the room. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan were playing chess with their grandpa. Fang Yingying wanted to move the horse, but Fang Haohan stopped him and said that the horse would be bombarded after 3 steps. Fang Yingying didn't believe it. The two couldn't come to an agreement, and they almost fought. Fang Yan's grandpa, Fang Hui, was lying on the chair and watching with a smile. He didn't urge them, and waited for the two to come to a conclusion. Seeing Fang Yan come in, Fang Yingying immediately complained and said, "Junior Marshal Uncle, come and see. Should we move the horse?" Fang Yan glanced at the chess game and slapped Fang Yingying's head, saying, "Move the horse and you will die." Fang Haohan said with a proud face, "I told you, move the horse and you will die after 3 steps." Fang Yin slapped Fang Haohan's head again and said, "3 steps? 2 steps and you will die. You are also a fool." Fang Yin drove Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan out of the room and took their place to play chess with his grandpa. He said, "Those 2 stinky chess pieces are no match for you. You have wronged them. Those 2 children are filial. They are worried that an old man like me would be bored lying in the room, so they came to accompany me to pass the time. Watching them fight and make fun of each other makes me feel happy." Fang Yin nodded and said, "As long as you are happy." Fang Hui looked at Fang Yin and said, "Have you vented your anger?" "I have vented my anger. Isn't this like making wedding clothes for others?" "You can't say that. Although it seems that the Yi family benefited the most from this incident, the entire Swallow Dock will also benefit from it. The Yi family got such a big advantage, shouldn't they show something?" Fang Yin explained with a smile. "That's true. Yi Daoling is capable and ambitious, but he is a bit narrow-minded. He thinks too highly of the Yi family's territory. In terms of looking at the big picture, he is not as far-sighted as you." Fang Hui was not stingy with his praise for his grandson. "It doesn't matter, let them have it easy. Just take it as the first betrothal gift from the Fang family to the Yi family." Chapter 389. The heavy snow stopped. The warm sunlight painted the white snow in the courtyard with a layer of gold. The smooth white snow sparkled in Fang Yan's eyes. He woke up without illness or pain. It was another beautiful day. The villagers of Swallow Fort all had the habit of planting plum trees. As a group of experts who lived in seclusion, it was as if they would lose face if they didn't plant a few plum trees or drink a few jeans of strong wine. Of course, there were also plum trees planted in the Fang family's courtyard. Fang Yin opened the window. A cool breeze blew in his face, followed by the fragrance of plum blossoms. Suddenly, a sweet fragrance wafted in the night, scattering the fragrance of heaven and earth, cleaning up the essence, leaving only the bones for people to see. Fang Yin sang with emotion. He felt like he was the plum blossoms that scattered the fragrance of heaven and earth. The red and yellow flowers trembled in the wind and snow, but silently sent a delicate fragrance to the house. This kind of character, this kind of strength of character, how was it different from what he did? For some reason, Fang Yin felt that the plum trees were very pitiful. He said to Fang Yingxiong, who had secretly pushed open the door and stuck his head out to look, "Yingxiong, go and tie some straw to the plum trees to keep them warm." Fang Yingying grinned and said, "Junior Marshal Uncle, are you starting to feel sad again? That sad wind in autumn. What sad wind in autumn? What sad wind and cold?" Fang Yin said unhappily, "I told you and Hero to read more books, but you two just don't listen." Yes, that's what I mean." Fang Yingying nodded shamelessly and said, "Junior Marshal Uncle, but this time you really think too much. Because plum trees are cold-resistant crops, they are not afraid of the cold." "How do you know they are not afraid of the cold?" Fang Yin turned and stared at Fang Yingying and asked, "Are you that plum tree? Do you know how they feel?" Fang Yingying opened his mouth and wanted to retort, "How do you know it is afraid of the cold? Are you a plum tree?" However, he knew that the consequences would be very serious. In the end, He swallowed back the words he wanted to say and said, "I'll go and dress them. Dress them up in an ambiguous way. Junior Marshall uncle. My mother wants you to have breakfast in the living room." Fang Yingying turned around and ran out. Fang Yan admired the plum blossoms for a while before returning to the bathroom to wash up. She took the toothbrush from the cup and was about to brush her teeth when she suddenly remembered something. He ran into the room and took out a white transparent toothbrush box. Inside the box was a dark blue toothbrush. This was something he borrowed from Yi Daoling's house. Anyway, no one would use what he had used. With the mentality that wasting was shameful, he packed this toothbrush and brought it home. He squeezed some toothpaste onto his toothbrush and brushed his teeth again. After brushing his teeth, there was not only the taste of mint in his mouth, but also a faint fragrance. This kind of toothbrush is really a treasure. Fang Yin kissed the handle of the toothbrush and then put it into the cup. Instead, he threw the toothbrush he used before into the trash can. Who told it not to have a natural body fragrance? When Fang Yin was washing his face, the phone in the room rang. Fang Yin wiped his hands and walked outside. He turned on the phone and found that it was a message from Yi Ro. He opened the message with excitement. There were only 4 words and a question mark. "Did you brush your teeth?" "Yes." Fang Yin replied happily. He thought that this woman was really smart. She even guessed that he had just brushed his teeth. "Did you use that dark blue toothbrush?" Yi Ro's message came quickly. Her typing speed was not slow at all. Fang Yan's handsome face was slightly red. Thinking that Yi Ro was not in front of him, he returned to normal and replied with a little embarrassment. "Why do you ask?" "Worry. Worry about what?" "That toothbrush fell into the toilet," Fang Yin said. Fang Yin sneered and replied, "Do you think I am an idiot? Do you think I will believe such a stupid lie? Even if you want to disgust me, you have to find a convincing reason. Do you smell fresh after brushing your teeth?" "That's right." Fang Yin grinned. "I knew it. How could a violent woman like you not have any reaction when encountering such a thing? It turns out that you just realized it. But isn't it too late to react now? You know, that toothbrush is already in my hands. I can't return it. Come and hit me if you can." "That's the smell of the orange brand toilet disinfectant," Yi Ro replied. Fang Yan's face turned pale. "Impossible." Fang Yan's hand trembled as he typed these 3 words. He didn't believe it. He was still struggling to survive. Otherwise, why would the smell be so strong? Yi Ro asked. Fang Yan's face was full of fear. A strong feeling of discomfort appeared in his stomach. He started to believe Yi Ro's words. Yes, Yi Ro usually didn't stay at Yi Daoling's house. That toothbrush might have just been unsealed. A toothbrush that had been used once. Even if it was stained with Yi Ro's fragrance, it shouldn't have such a strong orange smell. Moreover, the residue of the first use was normal. Wasn't it abnormal for the second use to have such a strong smell? Who would have such a strong smell on their body? Yi Ro sent another message. She was very patient. She had to convince Fang Yen until he believed her. Fang Yen didn't reply to this message. He didn't even dare to open it. "Do you think I am the fragrant concubine?" Yi Ro's words came through the phone. It was like a dagger stabbing into Fang Yan's heart. Fang Yan couldn't hold it in anymore. He laid on the edge of the toilet and vomited. In the woods by the shore of Shihizi, 2 beautiful girls were taking a walk in the snow. The cold wind in the morning was bone-chilling. Taking a breath would freeze people's hearts and lungs. However, these 2 girls didn't care at all. This kind of temperature was indeed not a difficult problem for them to overcome. Their physiques were originally better than ordinary people. Even some sturdy men were far inferior. "Sister, guess what he is doing now?" The girl with a red down jacket, blue jeans, and small leather boots asked playfully. The girl had a round face, round eyes, snow-white skin, and a cute appearance. She looked very young, and was in the best period of her first awakening of love. Girls at this stage were still full of fantasies about love. Whether it was someone else's or their own, they felt that it should be as beautiful and unforgettable as a fairy tale. "Vomit," the girl with white leather and white pants said. The simplest sportswear couldn't hide her ethereal temperament. It was like a fairy in the snow. It was the master of the world of wind and snow. The girl in red giggled and said, Sister, you are so bad. You took revenge on him like this. I'm afraid he won't have the appetite to eat breakfast today. Not only this morning, but also this afternoon and tonight. He won't be able to eat for a few days. Make him vomit all the bile in his stomach. Yi Zi was Yi Ro's cousin, and the youngest daughter of third uncle Yi Daoling. Yi Zi was a student of Yanjing Shuimu University. After the holidays, she ran to her hometown Yanzhou for a vacation. Last night, Fang Yan forced her to abdicate. Although Yi Daoling received a phone call from his family, there were still some things that couldn't be explained clearly. Therefore, Yi Ro was ordered to go to Yanjing to talk to Yi Daoling. Through Yi Ro's narration, Yi Daoling had a clearer understanding of the importance of Fang Yan in this incident. Therefore, Yi Daoling ordered his assistant Lin Donghai, who was also from Yanzhou, to bring Fang Yan to his home. Fang Yan and Yi Ro met at Yi Daoling's home. Because of Fang Yan's unreasonable behavior, the two even lived in the same room. Although they got along harmoniously, and there were no hot-blooded or melodramatic incidents, on the way back to Yanzhou, Yi Ro received a message from Fang Yan. I used your toothbrush to brush my teeth. Yi Ro was ashamed and angry. If Fang Yan was by her side, she would definitely beat him up again. After returning, Yi Zi found Yi Ro's strangeness. Under her questioning, Yi Ro finally told the truth to this younger sister, who was a few years younger than her, but could confide in her. Yi Zi suddenly had an idea. She said that she would never let her sister suffer. She must make Fang Yan, that bad guy, pay a painful price. Therefore, the two went out early and began to implement the revenge plan they had discussed. Yi Ro said expressionlessly, I just don't want him to continue using that toothbrush. She knew that if it weren't for this morning's incident, Fang Yan would have continued to use that toothbrush and that toothbrush. Moreover, that toothbrush was indeed the toothbrush she used. Yi Zi smiled and said, Sister, have you thought about it? Why does Fang Yan want to use your toothbrush? For revenge, Yi Ro said. For what? For hitting him. Is he that kind of person? A long time ago, when you were young, Yi Ro said with anger in her eyes. That year, after I defeated him in a martial arts competition, he bribed Yi Fengxing to sneak into my room and use my toothbrush to brush the toilet. How could he be so shameless? How could he do such a thing? Yi Zi said angrily. She clenched her small fists and asked, Sister, have you used that toothbrush? If you have, isn't it too disgusting? No, Yi Ro said. I knew it. Sister, you are so smart and won't be fooled. Yi Zi looked at Yi Ro with admiration and said proudly, It's not that I'm smart. Yi Ro blushed. I didn't expect that he would take revenge on me in such a way. It's so childish. Then why? Yi Zi looked puzzled. Because someone told me, Yi Ro said. Chapter 390. The informant must be Yi Fengxing, right? Humph, he still has some conscience. He is a member of our Yi family, but he always likes to help outsiders. Yezi was obviously very dissatisfied with Yi Fengxing's usual behavior and criticized him. Not Yi Fengxing, Yi Ro said. Yi Fengxing was also deceived by him that time. Then who told you? Yezi was full of curiosity. Although she was also from Swallow Dock, she was taken to Yanjing by her parents to study when she was a child. She would only come back during the winter and summer vacations, or on some free Sundays. She didn't spend much time in Swallow Dock, but she knew that Fang Yan's friends were all loyal to him. This was especially true for their Hua Meimin's team member, who made people laugh their heads off. I promised them I wouldn't tell anyone, Yi Ro said. Sister. Yezi took Yi Ro's arm and acted like a spoiled child. Can you tell me in secret? Tell me in secret. I won't tell anyone anyway. You know I've always been on your side. Even if I tell you, it will still be said. Yi Ro shook her head. Humph, you're not loyal, Yezi said discontentedly. She walked quickly alone for a while, and the trace of unhappiness in her heart disappeared. She came back with a smile and said, Sister, does Fang Yan like you? Yi Ro glanced at Yezi and didn't answer the question. He must like you, Yezi said. If he doesn't like you, why would he brush his teeth with your toothbrush? Think about it, how disgusting it is to use someone else's toothbrush. You will only feel sweet if you use the toothbrush of the person you like. Humph, I won't like him. Right? Yiro glanced at Yezi and said, I'll try my best. What do you mean? Yezi looked at Yiro in surprise. Sister, don't tell me you like Fang Yan? He is so annoying. Yiro was silent. Yezi sighed and said, I never thought that one day I would have to call Fang Yan brother-in-law. You're not allowed to tell him that I helped you take revenge today. If he finds out, he won't let me live a good life because of his narrow-mindedness. Yiro smiled and said, He already knows. Why? Because you replied to his message, Yiro said. If it were you, what would you do? Just beat him up when we meet, Yiro said lightly. When Fang Yan walked into the living room, his father, Fang Yixing, and his mother Lu Wan were already having breakfast at the dining table. Just like before, Grandpa ate alone in his own room. When Lu Wan was about to ask Fang Yan to eat, she saw that Fang Yan's face was pale, his pupils were dilated, and even his hair was a little messy today. She hurriedly asked, Fang Yan, what's wrong with you? Are you feeling unwell? I'm fine. Fang Yan waved his hand and sat down on the chair. Did you catch a cold? If you don't feel well, you can eat something before going back to sleep. Fang Yixing scooped a bowl of corn porridge and placed it in front of Fang Yan. He also picked up a meat bun from the plate and placed it in front of Fang Yan. There was a hole in the meat bun, and rich oil flowed out. Fang Yan glanced at it and felt his stomach churning. He lay on his stomach and retched a few times, but nothing came out. The contents of his stomach were all vomited out. Fang Yixing and Lu Wan were shocked. Lu Wan walked over and touched Fang Yan's back, saying, Fang Yan, are you okay? If you don't want to eat, go to bed and lie down for a while. Fang Yixing grabbed Fang Yan's arm, felt his pulse and said, His pulse is calm. He should be fine. Maybe he's too tired. He'll be fine after a rest. I'm fine. I just ate something I shouldn't have. Of course, Fang Yan knew he was fine. He pushed the meat bun away, picked up the bowl of corn porridge, and gulped it down. Only then did he feel some heat and strength in his body. He pushed the chair away and stood up, saying, You guys eat slowly. I'm going to talk to the heroes. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan were making straw dolls in the yard. They wrapped the straw dolls around the tree trunks, so that the plum trees wouldn't be frozen to death by the rare snow and ice. Today's winter was indeed colder than in previous years. Seeing Fang Yan coming out, Fang Yingying said to take credit. Junior Martial Uncle, have you eaten? Just wait for a while. We'll finish wrapping 2 more trees. That way they won't be frozen. I thought about it seriously when I was dressing them just now. Everything is alive. Although I'm not a plum tree, I can understand their feelings. We human beings are afraid of heat and cold, and so are these living trees. What's the difference between them and us? Thank you for your advice. I think my Tai Chi is going to improve to a higher level. Fang Haohan looked up at Fang Yingying and said, I've figured it out too. I think I'm going to make a breakthrough. Maybe I'll have the heart of Tai Chi after this breakthrough. Fang Yan was very satisfied with Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan's attitudes. He said, The ancients said that humans are not plants. How can they be emotionless? In fact, the ancients are wrong. Don't plants have feelings? Don't they have souls? They could also be happy. They could also be sad. They could cry. They could also be hurt. They will experience the friendship between brothers, encounter the love between men and women, and bear the cold betrayal. By the way, what's Yi Gentle's phone number? 136, Fang Yingying answered. After saying the 3 numbers, he realized that something was wrong. He looked at Fang Yan in horror. Fang Haohan looked at Fang Yingying, as if he was looking at an idiot. He thought to himself, with such an IQ, how can we be called heroes? Fang Yan looked at Fang Yingying coldly and said, Say it. Go on. Fang Yingxiong blinked his innocent little eyes and thought for a while. Then he slapped himself on the forehead and said, Look at my pig brain. I actually forgot such an important thing. What's behind it again? I haven't contacted Miss Yi for a long time. I even forgot her phone number. Fang Haohan, do you know her? I don't know. Fang Haohan denied firmly. He didn't want to be involved in this matter. I've never contacted Miss Yi alone. She's Junior Martial Uncle's opponent. Only Junior Martial Uncle can contact her. That's impossible. Fong Yingying didn't want to let Fong Haohan escape. In times of danger, you don't want me to die. I peeked at your phone a few days ago. I saw Miss Ye's phone number on it. Oh yes, you deliberately marked Miss Ye's name with pinyin. YWR. These 3 letters should represent Miss Ye, right? Why didn't you just write Miss Ye's name? Is there some secret that can't be seen? I'm hot. Fong Haohan said. YWR represents these 3 words. Junior Marshal Uncle is smart and wise. He's a genius. Do you think he will believe your lousy excuse? Fong Yingying said with a sneer. Fong Yingying. Fong Yen shouted. Plop. Fong Yingying knelt down in front of Fong Yen. He hugged Fong Yan's leg and cried, Junior Marshal Uncle, kick me to death. Kick me to death. I didn't want it. I didn't want to betray you. I've been regretting it ever since I did it. I couldn't eat well. I couldn't sleep well. I couldn't even wrap the plum tree's foreskin properly. I was sad and blamed myself. Junior Marshal Uncle, kick me to death. If this can make you feel better, I'll die without regrets. You want me to kick you to death? Fong Yen stared at Fong Yingying's funny fat face coldly and said, Then let go of your stinky hand first. This fatso was too hypocritical. He shouted for others to kick him to death. But his hands were hugging Fong Yan's legs tightly. How could others kick him? Junior Marshal Uncle, I didn't think that woman was so sinister. I was used by her. Fong Yingxiong cried with tears and snot on his face. You also know that no girl has ever liked me since I was young. They would laugh when they saw me. They thought I was chubby and funny. But they were never willing to play with me. I'm a failure. I'm very pitiful. I have no experience with women. I don't understand their evil thoughts. I don't understand their methods of harming people. Junior Marshal Uncle, I don't want to live anymore. I really don't want to live anymore. I'm already so old. I still have my first love and first kiss. Tell me, what's the point of living like this? Hearing Fong Yingying's confession, Fong Haohan couldn't help but feel sad. With red eyes, he sat down in the snow and said in a hoarse voice, If there is a you, how can there be a Liang? If there is a Junior Marshal Uncle, how can there be a hero? We are excellent, but Junior Marshal Uncle is more excellent. All the girls in Swallow Dock like Junior Marshal Uncle. Our lives can only be so bitter. Even Fong Yen felt that he was being too cruel after they teamed up to do such a thing. I'm just a little more handsome. Is that wrong? Is that wrong? Okay. Fong Yen patted Fong Yingying's shoulder and said, You just need to be honest. Tell me, did you send a message to Yi Ro this morning? I said you can't hit me? Of course. Fong Yen said. Really? When did I lie to you? You used to lie to me. I didn't lie to you this time. I really didn't lie to you. Fong Yen said awkwardly. I'm touched by you too. I feel sorry for you too. I received a message from Miss Yi when I was practicing my stance this morning. I thought she wanted to take me out for a walk. My heart was beating fast. I didn't know if I should accept or refuse. If I accepted, I felt sorry for you. If I refused, I was afraid that I would hurt Miss Ye's love. Forget it. You don't have to say it. I understand. Fong Yen felt it was too hard to talk to Fatso. Then he pressed down on Fong Yingying's head and punched him again and again. He had to admit that Yi Ro's way of doing things was sometimes simple and useful. Chapter 391. The teacher came back with a dung basket. From afar, he saw a figure kneeling at the door of his hut. He narrowed his eyes and walked over slowly. He poured the pig dung in the basket into the cesspool in the backyard, and put the basket in the corner outside the hut. Then, he took out a bunch of keys from his pocket, and prepared to open the lock. Sir, I was wrong. Fong Yen straightened his body and said in a deep voice. The teacher was deaf and didn't hear Fong Yan's words. He opened the copper lock, and pushed the door straight into the hut. He took off his sheepskin coat, and hung it on the wall. Then, he used an aluminum basin from the kettle on the stove to wash his face and hands. His face and hands were steaming, and the chill on his body was also dispelled a lot. The teacher opened the old teapot on the square table that had a hole in it. He grabbed a handful of broken tea leaves, and threw them into the teapot. Then, he took the antique bottle with the words, "Serving the People" printed on it, and poured water into the teapot. There were no complicated steps to make tea. It was simple and crude. When he felt that the tea leaves tasted good, he poured himself a bowl of tea with a big bowl and blew it gently to drink. "Sir, I'm here to apologize to you," Fang Yan, who was kneeling at the door, shouted again. The teacher was expressionless and still pretended not to hear him. He stood at the threshold of the hut and drank his big bowl of tea with relish. "Sir, I'll take it that you forgive me if you don't speak," Fang Yan shouted loudly. The teacher still didn't speak. The teacher didn't speak, so Fang Yan didn't get up. He knew that sometimes he could be lively, but there were some things that he had to be serious. For example, now, the teacher didn't speak, and Fang Yan didn't speak either. One was standing inside the threshold, and the other was kneeling outside. The teacher lived in the back of the village, which faced the back of the mountain. The wild wind was whistling, and the snow was buried for thousands of miles. The whole world was a vast expanse of whiteness. Fang Yan became a small dot in this white world. The teacher stood and drank tea, while Fang Yan knelt. The teacher sat and listened to music, while Fang Yan knelt. Teacher was lying down and sleeping, while Fang Yan was kneeling. When the teacher woke up, he washed the rice and washed the pot to cook. He cut the salted fish into 2 pieces, and hung one piece on the wall, while the other was thrown into the rice pot. He went to the backyard and pulled a bunch of vegetables and a few shallots. He washed them in ice water and boiled them. Fang Yan was still kneeling. The teacher ate the salted fish rice, swallowed a few small vegetables, washed the bowls and chopsticks, brushed the iron pot clean, and poured water into the teapot for the morning, and drank a bowl of hot tea. Fang Yan was still kneeling. The warm sunshine in the morning disappeared without a trace at noon. The snowflakes that had stopped drifting once again. The snowflakes were soft, but the chill was hurtful. Fang Yan knelt in the wind and snow. His hair was messed up by the cold wind, and his body was covered in snow. Even his eyebrows were frozen. Fang Yan became a snowman, just like the snowmen they used to make when they were young. They put on a hat and a scarf to make it look like a real person. Fang Yan was the most vivid snowman, because he was a real person. When Fang Yan was kneeling, Swallow Dock was still as quiet as before. However, what was different from before was that many of the courtyard doors were open, and people were standing at the door looking into the distance. The Li family, an old lady in a gray cotton-padded jacket, stood at the door and asked, "Is the kid from the Fang family still kneeling?" "He's kneeling." Li Xiaotian stood behind the old lady and replied with a pained expression. "Sigh." The old lady sighed and said to her grandson, "This child has great ambitions. It's inevitable that he will suffer a little." The Yi family. Yi Daowen was stomping around in the study. He pushed open the window and asked the servant who was sweeping the snow outside, "Is Fang Yan still kneeling?" "He's kneeling," the servant replied. Crack. The window was closed again. The servant looked at each other and lowered his head to sweep the floor again. The Fang family. Old Master Fang Hui didn't ask for plum wine today, nor did he ask Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan to play chess with him. He asked someone to push him to the window. He didn't use a mattress to keep warm, nor did he wear the leather hat he used to keep warm. His big bald head was even brighter than the white snow outside. He looked out the window and at the plum trees wrapped in straw in the courtyard. Suddenly he lost his temper and scolded, "Who wrapped it? Who wrapped it? How can there be such an exotic fragrance without experiencing the wind and snow? Tear it down. Tear all the straw for me." Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan didn't dare to refute. They hurriedly ran out to tear down the straw bundles that had been wrapped up this morning. At this moment, Fang Hui was full of murderous intent. He didn't look like a paralyzed person, but more like a fierce general who had just come down from the battlefield. Yi Ro pushed open the courtyard door. The old drunkard didn't even look at her and said, "I'm drunk. You can do whatever you want." Then he lay down in the corner of the corridor and slept soundly. Loud snoring could be heard. Yi Ro patted the jar with her palm. The sealed mortar at the mouth of the jar flew out and disappeared. With a kick of her toes, the big jar in front of her flew into the air. The wine jar tilted slightly. As it fell, a stream of spring water poured down. Yi Ro opened her mouth and took a deep breath. Her posture was cool and arrogant. There were also many courtyard doors open, watching from afar. Today, in Swallow Dock, everyone's eyes were focused on the young man kneeling in the wind and snow. Fang Yin was already a legend of Swallow Dock. The teacher drank 3 bowls of hot tea in a row. It wasn't until the teapot was empty, and the color of the tea became darker, and the taste more bitter, that the teacher put down the teacup. He shouted to the outside, "Stop acting. Come in." Crack, Fang Yin got up from the snow. Because he hadn't moved for a long time, a thin layer of ice formed on his knees and calves in the snow. With a slight movement, the layer of ice broke with a crisp sound. Crack, crack, crack. This was the sound of all the bones in his body cracking. The stagnant qi and blood, and the stiff bones all relaxed and regained their vitality. Fang Yin had the heart of Tai Chi to protect his body, so he could keep the bitter cold from invading him. The ice and snow his body, and the heart of Tai Chi became a harmonious whole. The heart of Tai Chi became a bridge of communication between Fang Yin and the ice and snow. It transformed the ice and snow into a kind of energy, and transmitted it to Fang Yin, so that Fang Yin could touch it gently and comfortably, instead of directly experiencing the attack of the bitter cold. Of course, if he had inner strength, he could also transform it into heat to resist the bitter cold and burn the ice and snow. However, the heart of Tai Chi was natural, and using inner strength to resist the cold consumed more mental and physical strength. It was difficult to maintain. This was also the reason why the heart of Tai Chi was more valuable than the other internal mental cultivation methods or strength techniques. When Fang Yin moved, the snow on his body fell, the frost on his eyebrows disappeared, and he became a living person with flesh and blood. There was an iron sword stuck in his back, the hilt facing down, the tip of the sword pointing up, hanging diagonally on his back. Fang Yin walked into the small room and said to the teacher, "Teacher, I have come to apologize to you. What did I do wrong?" The teacher asked. "Fang Yin is young, so I shouldn't have made the decision to force Teacher Gong," Fang Yin said seriously. The teacher looked at Fang Yin and said, "You didn't make the decision on your own. You have been planning this for a long time." Fang Yin knows his mistake. Fang Yin lowered his head and admitted his mistake. "Fang Yin, now that you've forced Swallow Dock to abdicate, the entire Swallow Dock will move because of you. Have you ever thought that while you're fighting for Swallow Dock's benefits, you're also pushing Swallow Dock to the world? Is this good or bad for Swallow Dock?" In ancient times, there was the right to release troops with a cup of wine. There was also the saying, "When the cunning hare is dead, the hound is cooked, and when the birds are gone, the fine bough is hidden." When the country is in trouble, we use our swords to solve the problem. When the country is peaceful, we bury our swords and plow the fields. We are all martial artists, wholeheartedly practicing martial arts and seeking the way, living a peaceful life. Peaceful and beautiful, reproducing for 1,000 years. Isn't that good? 30 years of fame and glory, dust and soil. A beautiful dream of a golden bridge, all for nothing. What are we fighting for? What are we fighting for? "Teacher, I know my mistake." Fang Yin lowered his head even more. "You are not wrong." The teacher shook his head. Young people, with lofty words and lofty aspirations. Who doesn't want to kill the enemy on the battlefield? Who doesn't want to be famous everywhere? Who doesn't want to carve a stone to record their achievements and write their name on the stone tablet at the entrance of Swallow Dock? My duty is to protect the continuation of the bloodline of Swallow Dock, to ensure that the loyalty of Swallow Dock will not change, and that the martial arts will not decline. So I hope to keep a low profile and remain silent, just like I have been for hundreds of years, willing to be forgotten by the world. You have chosen another path, one that is aggressive and cruel. There is no right or wrong, but have you thought clearly, which path is more suitable for Swallow Dock? Fang Yin raised his head to look at the teacher and said in a clear voice, "I swear on my life that the loyalty of Swallow Dock will not change, and that the martial arts will not decline. We train hard in martial arts, ponder day and night, just to strengthen our bodies and promote justice. We swear to protect our country with our lives, shed our blood, and those who offend us, huaxia, will be punished no matter how far away they are. Teacher, the world is changing, and so are we. I have never thought about whether this path is right or wrong, I only thought about the right or wrong of this matter. I am not willing to be aggressive. I am even more unwilling to be cruel. I only hope that we will not be bullied. I only have this small ambition." The teacher pondered for a long time, looked at Fang Yan and said, "Since you have already thought it through, why are you apologizing?" Teacher will always be teacher. Fang Yan's teacher swallowed Doc's teacher. I have no respect for my elders. I have disobeyed teacher, so naturally I have to apologize, Fang Yan said without changing his expression. Fang Yan, kneel, the teacher said. Fang Yan obeyed and knelt down. You have a son, Fang Yan, who has no respect for his elders, and who is audacious and presumptuous. He has disobeyed Mr. and placed Swallow's Doc in a dangerous situation. Mr. stretched out his hand and drew the iron sword from Fang Yan's back. He said, "Severely punish him with 3 strokes as punishment." The teacher held the long sword in his hand, and the blade struck straight at Fang Yan's head. Clang! When the sword came down, it was not Fang Yan's head that was cut in half, but the iron sword that was broken into 2 pieces. Fang Yan was ashamed and said embarrassedly, "I was afraid that teacher would really kill me in a fit of anger. So, I did something to the sword." The teacher held the sword hilt and was stunned for a long time before he said helplessly, "In ancient times, there was Su Qin who carried the sword on his back, and today, there is Fang Yan who carries the sword. Go back. Go back. I can't teach you." Chapter 392. It's not good to be too smart. Fang Yan took the initiative to bring his friends to force Teacher Gong, which was a serious mistake for Swallow Doc and Teacher Gong. Originally, he wanted to carry a few branches over. Didn't the ancients play the trick of carrying thorns to ask for punishment? However, could a man from Swallow Doc do such a thing? Wouldn't you be insulting teacher and yourself by carrying a few thorns? Even if teacher broke those thorns, he wouldn't be able to do anything to you. Instead, it would be a waste of his old strength. By doing such a thing, you would make teacher angry for no reason. Fang Yan hesitated again and again, and with Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan, the 2 inept military counselors, he finally decided to carry the sword and apologize. First, the sword looked imposing and murderous. At first glance, he looked like an iron-blooded man from Swallow Doc. Teacher Gong was happy at first glance, and it was easy for those young girls and pretty wives to size him up when he walked on the road, which could add points to his appearance. Second, the weight of the sword was heavier than the thorns, which showed Fang Yan's determination to sincerely admit his mistake. He didn't run away, wasn't afraid, and faced his mistakes bravely. "If you want to kill me or cut me up, you can do whatever you want. The grandfather will take it." No, the grandson will take it. Fang Yan had already carried the sword. At the critical moment, Fang Yingying asked a question. "What if Teacher Gong kills you in a rage?" The 3rd martial nephew of the Fang family was suddenly stunned. Yes, Teacher Gong suffered such a big loss, and Fang Yan's behavior was obviously different from Teacher Gong's usual ideas. Teacher Gong would draw his sword and kill Fang Yan, or cut Fang Yan in a rage. What should he do? This problem had to be carefully considered. In the end, under Fang Yingying's initiative proposal and Fang Haohan's strong request, Fang Yan had to reluctantly accept this dishonorable decision and use the sword prop they usually used in the game. There was a mechanism in that sword, and it would break into 2 pieces with a little force. In the past, when Fang Yan and the others were playing with their friends, they often used this kind of prop sword to attack each other in order to express their high kung fu and the depth of their inner force. As the 2 of them were competing with their internal energy, the sword in the friend's hand suddenly broke into 2 pieces. One piece fell to the ground, while the other pierced the opponent's abdomen. Before the victim died, he said in horror, "You've actually learned sword-breaking technique?" Fang Yan's face was burning, as if he had been slapped in the face dozens of times. The current situation was not very good to look at. Fang Yan quickly got up from the ground and explained, "Mister, please don't be angry. I was just joking with you. You've been living in this deserted village for a long time, and there's not much entertainment. You must be bored. I'm just here to relieve Sir's boredom." Make Mr. laugh. The old skin on Mr.'s face twitched. His gray eyes stared at Fang Yan with an expression that said, "Did you see me smile?" Fang Yan looked around the room and pulled out a dusty iron sword from the corner of the wall. He said, "Come, I'll find a new sword. If you want to kill me or cut me up, you can do whatever you want. As long as you are my mister for a day, you will always be my mister. To be able to die under Mr.'s sword, I have no regrets." Forget it, forget it. Mr. waved his hand and looked seriously at Fang Yan. He said, "Fang Yan, I understand your intentions. I have my own way of thinking, but you've ultimately chosen the path you want to walk. As I said earlier, there's no right or wrong. There's only suitability. Whether it's suitable or not, we can only find out as we go on. You've already led Swallow Dock to take a step forward, so Swallow Dock can no longer retreat. Others won't allow us to retreat either, so we can only move forward. Since you've led Swallow Dock to take the first step, then lead Swallow Dock to continue moving forward. You are duty-bound to fulfill this mission. Mister, I'm not suitable, right? I feel that I'm too careless and have a glib tongue. I can't handle too much pressure, and I want to turn and run at the first sign of danger. Why don't you choose someone else? I feel that Bai Xiu is not bad. He's mature and steady, broad-minded, and has outstanding abilities. Most importantly, the men and women of Swallow Dock, old and weak, all admire him and give him a thumbs up whenever he's mentioned. Bai Xiu is much more suitable than me. Mr. stared at Fang Yan with a sharp gaze and said, "Fang Yan, put away your cunning thoughts. Do you think I'll think you're useless just because you've provoked me with a lousy sword? Your personality is exactly the same as your grandfather, Fang Hui, in the past. Temper, no courage. Ability, less responsibility. Your grandfather has been wronged all his life, and the second half of his life has been sullen. Can't you, as his grandson, fight for him?" Fang Yan held the dusty iron sword in his hand and sighed softly. "Mister, the responsibility is great. I'm afraid I can't bear it. As long as you do your best, who will blame you when the time comes?" Mr. said heroically and domineeringly. "If anyone is dissatisfied, tell him to come and talk to me. See if I don't use the iron sword to break his head. See if I don't use the iron sword to break his head." Only Mr. could say this. No one else dared to say it, nor did they have the right to say it. Mr. was Mr. Swallow Dock's Mr. Mr. patted Fang Yan's shoulder and said, "Go. You're not alone. Swallow Dock will always be your strong shield. As long as I'm alive, I'll support you as well." Fang Yan was silent and bowed deeply to Mr. He turned around and left, solemn and stirring. From this day on, from this moment on, he would shoulder another responsibility. It was a responsibility that could not be seen or touched, but was so heavy that it made others breathless. This kid. Mr. smiled and shook his head. "Mr." Bai Xiu appeared in front of Mr. He had black hair, a white robe, and was barefooted. At first glance, he looked like a lonely ghost or a lunatic. However, his black hair was too natural and soft, and his white robe was too plain and clean. His entire person looked gentle and refined, and it was easy to give people a good impression. "I was almost tricked by this hairy monkey again," Mr. said proudly. "When dealing with this kid, your head has to turn a few times. It's never wrong to think about everything more than a few times." He was able to kneel in the snow for so long without a word of complaint, but he couldn't bear this little punishment. Did he need to bring out a broken sword to embarrass himself? He just wanted to make me angry, so that I would push him aside and choose someone else to bear this responsibility. This lazy guy, I won't let him have his way. See, Monkey Son still couldn't escape the palm of Buddha Tathagata's hand. Mr.'s wisdom is as vast as the sea. This little trick of his naturally has nowhere to hide. Bai Xiu said respectfully. "What wisdom is as vast as the sea?" Mr. waved his hand and said with a humble expression, "The longer one lived, the more reverence one had for things like life. I've only lived a few more years than you guys, seen a little more, and heard a little more, that's all." "Mr. Fang Yan took your Qingyan sword," Bai Xiu said. Mr. was stunned and asked, "When?" "When he bowed to you with a face full of affection," Bai Xiu said. "Mister, do you want to get it back?" Bai Xiu asked. Forget it, Mr. said with a wave of his hand. Good wind, send me to Qingyan. This Qingyan sword has accompanied me for decades, and has never been unsheathed. I'll give it to him, and send him straight to Qingyan. Bai Xiu smiled and said, Mister, you really like Fang Yan. He took advantage of you, and made you speechless. How can I not like such a kid? Smart people do have an advantage in this world. Yes, Bai Xiu said with a nod. He took the cold bowl from Mister's hand, and heated it with boiling water. He then poured a bowl of hot water and put it in Mister's hand, saying, Drink less tea and drink more water. You've just handed such an important responsibility to Fang Yan. Don't you want to live a few more years and see how far he can take Swallow Dock? Mister patted the back of Bai Xiu's hand and said, This kid is smart, but smart people go to extremes too easily. If Swallow Dock is in danger, you must stop him. Mister, I understand. Bai Xiu nodded solemnly. Swallow Dock is Fang Yan's Swallow Dock, and it is also my Swallow Dock. Mister smiled and said, My spirit is tired after fighting with that kid in a battle of wits and courage. You go, I'll lie down and rest for a while. Bai Xiu didn't leave immediately. Instead, he helped light the pile of firewood, helped Mister lie down on the chair, and covered him with a mattress before closing the wooden door and leaving. Creak! The wooden door closed, and the man lying on the chair opened his eyes. In the light of the fire, his pupils shone with a multicolored luster. His eyes were deep and distant, like the endless snowy plains outside the thatched cottage, and like the starry sky that covered the entire earth. This was an old man with wisdom and experience. These young people, he looked at the fire in front of him and said softly, I hope this is Swallow Dock's good fortune. Fang Yan held the green cloud sword and walked back like a thief who had gotten his hands on him. However, at the edge of the pond in front of his house, he ran into a black-clothed woman who was throwing a snowball into the pond. The woman grabbed a handful of snow from the snow under her feet and squeezed it. A smooth little ball appeared in her palm. She threw the little ball toward the pond's icy surface. The little ball slid forward on the ice. This was a little game that Fang Yan had taught her. Swallow Dock wasn't a bustling place. It didn't have bars or karaoke, but the children naturally had their own ways of picking up girls that weren't inferior to the methods of the children in the city. Fang Yan looked at her back for a while and felt that it was best not to have any contact with her. Holding his sword, he prepared to sneak past her without making a sound. Are you pretending not to know me or pretending not to see me? The woman suddenly turned around and looked at the escaping Fang Yan with a smile. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.